tonight. So I'm juiced about tonight. I read through both slides, so I'm gonna be a teacher and a student all in one night, and it's gonna be super, super fire. So before we get started, it's a couple announcements. The first announcement is we want to welcome the She Can Thrive girls. All those who have tuned in tonight, if this is your first time, we definitely hope that you enjoy it and look forward to your feedback. Second thing is if you are on the road or you don't have the capacity to log in and ask questions, when you get home, you can also email us at hope at 510media.com. That's hope at 510media.com. You can email questions, and Shabisha will be monitoring that and make sure that you get your questions answered. All right. Y'all ready? Put your seatbelts on, buckle up. We about to get going. I'm still kind of wired from work, so you're going to get kind of like the fangs out Courtney tonight. Let's start the next slide. First off, let's do a little bit of review. That's not the right slide. Nope. Wait.
Recap.
Go back to the beginning. Are we causation and casualties?
No.
We're in causation and causality, right?
Yeah.
That's an old one.
I think you're in those slides, Jasani. Yeah, just give us a second.
Time out. 2-minute break. So while we're waiting for them to fix the slides, let's talk questions. Any burning questions over the weekends, things you thought about from last class that we possibly could discuss, Shakina?
Not specifically from last class, but just, I guess, the culmination of like the last month. I've been trying to become a smarter business owner, especially in my field. Like, I do physical, work for a living. And so, and from like the beginning of my brick and mortar 8 years ago, like I always had a lot of hours that I put into my business. And I've been trying to be intentional about scaling back my excessive hours of working in my business to more of working on my business, because I work a minimum of 10 hours to 12 to 14 hours most days.
Mm-hmm.
And so my dream would be to work Monday, Wednesday, Friday and not go in on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But that's something I have to like grow into. So I started scaling back my hours. And it's funny because I'm working down to half days on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I'm realizing now that I don't know what to do with my free time because in my head, I didn't have free time, because I always had a client in every single hour, I was like, oh, if I had free time, I would do X, Y, Z. And now that I've got like 5 hours back, really 10 hours back twice, in the week, I'm like, okay, I did the 2 hours worth of work that I thought I would do. And now I have 8. What do I do with that? And I don't know if anybody else has like transitioned from working a lot in the business to trying to work on the business and what that transition looks like. But it's driving me crazy because I feel I don't want to say lazy, but I feel unproductive that I now have all this time that I don't know what to do with. And now in my brain and my heuristics wants to go, well, just fill it back up with clients because at least you're doing something. But I know that's not the right answer.
That's a common feeling at scale. So when you're growing your business and you start hiring, the common feeling is to feel, because you patterned yourself from working. And now you have a void. So there's a saying in science, the universe abhors a vacuum. So what that means is that if you dug a hole outside, in 6 months, that hole will be filled and nobody touched it. Is because naturally the way gravity and dirt and wind works, that it always fills holes because we're in a vacuum. Same thing with us. Any pattern, any routine that you have over years, over years, over years, over years, over years, and all of a sudden you stop it and there's a gap in time, there's a vacuum, and the wind inside of you, the wind and the dirt wants to fill it up quickly. And it feels weird. You feel lazy, you feel fidgety, you feel, damn, I ain't do. The worst thing you can do is to fill it up with the stuff you did before. Worst, you gotta resist, even if you don't do nothing, because what recreating, you're recreating new patterns in yourself now, and soon the voices, the agitation will start to dissipate, and then you'll be able to think clearly and start doing something productive, like working on your business, scaling, or refreshing yourself. But it's normal. That's a good thing. That was such a difficult thing for me too. It's like, oh shit, I got somebody to do that. Okay, well then I'm gonna sit. And I didn't know. I couldn't even work on my business or come up with strategies because my brain was still agonizing over not working. But over time, that fades. But just don't do that. It's a great place to be, though. It's a scaling place to be, and it's funny how there's little things in scaling that our bodies and our minds, it naturally, we have these fundamental beliefs inside of us that naturally gravitate towards wanting to be a technician. We're just in us. And how we got to where we are came from us being excellent technicians. And you couldn't be a okay technician. You had to be the best technician in your industry to get where you are. So I got to out technician all y'all to get to the top of my game in this business to grow my company. And now you telling me I got to stop? That is definitely a weird feeling. It's a weird feeling, but you got to resist that shit. Resist it. You get behind me, Satan. Get behind me. Yeah, I think next question. I think I'm excited about this class too, is because I don't share as many personal experiences as I used to, but this class is perfect for just a parallel of things that I'm experiencing that apply to this class. So we'll get an opportunity to really share. Go ahead.
I was actually going to see if I could speak to Shakina's point about having space and time, because I had gotten to the point of burnout from work and took time off. That first couple weeks was pacing around my apartment trying to figure out what to do. Then it was going outside and going for a walk, which is essentially pacing around the block. And then essentially it turned into pacing around the lake or pacing around but I didn't realize that I needed the space and time to like have nothing to do for my mind to really envision where I want it to be. And even if it's just, if you feel like you have to make space for something, make a routine for finding your joy so that you can find something that you truly, really love. Because right now, yes, you do love your business, you love working out, you love those things, but it's not completely you. And finding another piece of joy that's separate from that will fill you in a different kind of way, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, dope. All right, so let's recap a couple of things from last class. 2 things. First thing was, whose coat are you holding? Remember that? Have you thought, whose coat are you holding? Have you thought about holding someone's coat? Holding a person's coat is one of the most critical things you can do as an up and coming growing entrepreneur. So if you're just starting out a business, you have an idea, you're working on a process, you're working on a project, your business is under 100K, under 500K, under $1 million, doesn't matter. There's always somebody's coat you need to be holding, meaning the translation of that is, who can you learn from who has what you want? Who could you volunteer your time to, who has the life, the business, the money, the things that you particularly want, and you learn from them. And a lot of times we're egotistical in terms of not wanting to. I ain't doing that. I don't do nothing for free. If somebody has what you want and you can have the opportunity to learn from them, whose coat are you holding? Hold their coat, because you're not a coat holder. What are you? You're next in line. You're not a coat holder, you're next in line. Last thing we talked about is passion. And passion, as we in terms of ego as an enemy, passion is an emotion that can get you started in business as an entrepreneur, but it is completely unsustainable. And you have to turn passion off immediately once you start building your business, and especially when you're scaling, because passion will have you in places longer than you need it to be, making bad decisions, because passion and entrepreneurship at the highest level do not mix. A lot of times also people mix passion with purpose. But you know the difference between purpose and passion? Good decisions. Good decisions. Because purpose will make you double back to ensure you're making the best decision in a moment for the purpose of your passion. For the sake of your purpose. Passion will have you making knee-jerk reactions because you feel it. You feel it. I know it. I feel it. So passionate. So be very conscious of the two. You ready to go? All right. All right, next slide. So, we're going to talk a little bit about Survivor. Survivor Season 2. We had a Season 1 last time. This is Survivor Season 2. We are all contestants, again, on Survivor Season 2. The mission, the goal of Survivor Season 2 is to outlast, outlive, kill or be killed. You guys already know the drill, right? Now, to preface this, if any of us have come from backgrounds where we lived in a scarcity environment at home, we grew up in a scarcity environment at home, this is for you. And I don't care how much money you're making now. I don't care if you're a multi-millionaire now. This is still for you. Because if you grew up scarcity environments, your parents raised you in a scarcity environment, you grew up below the poverty level, poor in the hood, schools, underfunded schools, bad neighborhoods where they were dangerous, violent, they weren't invested in, parks with syringes inside in the parks. That whole environment, if you grew up in those environments, then there's scarcity and survival mode embedded in you. And it may be a governing belief, more than likely it is, so it's deep, deep, deep down there. And you don't know a lot of times that it's down there until somebody presses that button. You have an event. It's a trigger. And the cold part about it is, because it's a governing belief, I call it's like water to a fish. Governing beliefs are like water to a fish. You can't ask a fish, do you know that you're in water? They'll be like, what's water? So a lot of times we operate and behave in survivor mode and don't even know it's there. We'll look you dead in your eyes and act like we're not. I don't know what you're talking about. So there are certain triggers and certain clues that can at least allow you to know you're in survival mode. Step one is just to stop. That's why I was telling me and Shabisha were talking on the way here, and the beauty of what she said was, I don't know what to do, but I know things aren't right, so I'm just gonna stop. I don't know what it is, but I'm just gonna stop. Something is telling me that I'm in a blind spot, and I don't have it all. What was the word you used, Shabisha? It was.
I'm not good at encore.
Forget it. It was a beautiful word.
Something.
But understand, survival and scarcity does us the same way. Next slide. So, in order for us to understand and dig deep into this, we have to go before survival mode and scarcity. And we have to understand context, spectrums, and perspectives. So we talk a lot about context. But I still am not sure if you guys are 100% aware of how context work and how context can change the skew of how you live your life and how you do your business. Context is everything. If I said, "Hey, Shakina, I just got word your customer's furious. She said your service was horrible. The training sucked." What in scarcity mode? What would Shakina do? Be defensive. Couple things. Be defensive. Another thing. Rush to change all the things that the customer was upset about. That's what scarcity would do. That's what survival mode would do. Because I don't want to lose the money. So what did they say? Okay, boom, fix. Well, what's the context? She's been knowing Shakina for 15 years and been wanting to start a gym herself for 15 years and just couldn't. Mad. Okay. That gives me some context. Now, am I quick to make those changes now? No. That's one bit of context, one piece of context. I did a survey after that happened. I did a quiet survey to 100 people, and 99 love everything that we're doing. They don't want us to change anything. More context. See, context is everything. Scarcity, gotta understand. I gotta run through. Context is everything. If you don't have context, your data is worthless. Please write this down. If you don't have context, your data is worthless. Well, my friends liked it. Well, I asked 10 customers about this, and all 10 customers said they liked it. Okay, that's dope. How'd you do it? Do you like this? Do you like this? Do you like this? Well, of course, man. Come on. So context is everything. And if you once you learn the context game, you become way more stoic in terms of how you process information. Because you can be triggered easily. I could trigger you easily. And then cognitive dissonance can kick in and you can lock down on the first thing I say and not give a damn what I say after that. If I say, a man just killed a woman.
Oh my God.
Timing is everything too, shit. A man just killed a woman. There's nothing but women in here. And left it at that. Everybody's story machine starts and just goes. And you're at the end right now of the story. What's your opinion now? Man, fuck that dude. Throw him under the jail. You don't never touch women. You don't. Right? But what's the context? What happened? That's why, like, he used to look like the bad guy a lot, and now it's like, I'm that dude. I'm turning into that dude, and I don't want to. But it's like, it's just happening because the more you read and the more you learn, you just can't help but be in this way. Somebody will tell you this dramatic story, and the response is supposed to say, oh, man, really? Oh, man. And I want to do that. I do. I want to keep doing that because I used to work for me. But it just jumps out. Okay, so give me the backstory. But what was she doing? Well, what was she doing? And over time, they're like, God, man, come on, just be sad with me. Or just be mad at that person with me. But I can't because I need the context. I don't want to make rash decisions, rash judgments, assumptions without context. And you have to become that way if you want to be a good entrepreneur. You have to. You have to. Trump said this. COVID. Context. All those things. Context. Give me context. And then when you're in that broad road of assumptions, you'll look over to the right and you see some people just veering off on these little narrow roads. And you're like, they're going to destruction. They're going to die because we know what the right thing. They learned all the nuances of the context, and now they know they're going in the right direction. Context is everything. Spectrums is another thing. You have to understand where you are on the spectrum, and I don't mean autistic. Bruh. You wrong for that. Shakina, I saw that. Where you are on the spectrum of everything. Because spectrum allows you, it gives you lots of clarity in terms of where you are. B, it helps you be humble. Helps you be humble. We're going to go deeper in spectrums in the next slide. But spectrum, where you are on the spectrum. Like, oh, black people ain't got no money, they broke, they this or that. Well, let's stop. Where are we at in the spectrums of different things? Let's say spending power. We broke, how much money are we spending a year? I don't know. Well, we broke $500,000, $500 million. No, trillions of dollars. So they spending it with somebody. Spectrums are hugely important. You got to understand, where are you? It's like the map. Where am I? And then the third one is perspectives. So perspectives mean my beliefs is how I see the world. How I see the world comes from my beliefs, which gives you my perspective. But you have to understand the world, based on spectrums, has so many different perspectives on the same exact thing. Remember the case about the elephant? The blind men and the elephant. And they all touched different parts of the elephant. And they came back and reported 7 completely different things. And all of those things were true. So once you are comfortable with the idea of perspectives, then your shoulders can relax when two people, you and another person, don't agree. I love that perspective. That's an interesting perspective. I don't see that. This is what I see. So these 3 things right here can change the rhythm of even how you communicate, how you operate your business, how you talk to your loved ones, how you deal with relationships, how you deal with your friends, forgiveness, the whole shit. We got deep a couple weeks ago, talking about forgiveness of people who may have hurt us in the past. It's a disconnection of perspectives.
Can I just say real quick? Listen, please listen to everything Court is saying right now. When you get to the most advanced level of a lot of this stuff, he's giving you treasure. He's literally planting a treasure chest for you right now. Because these subjects, like he's saying to you, it goes way further. But you got to get if you don't get this portion of the class, when we get to some of the more advanced strategies and how to move things and how to move invisible systems, you're going to miss it. I can't begin to tell you. This stuff he's telling you right now is way deeper than you can begin to imagine. So if you don't understand something, write your questions down. He had a lot of times for questions, but the stuff he's talking about right now is very powerful.
Man, changed my life. Change is a life changer. And the thing is too is religion has taken a decline. It's a fact, right? In terms of viewership and people who attend church. But the thing you lose from church in religion per se is a lot of the axioms that are basic. They're real basic, but but a lot of them tie back to this stuff, and it's deep. So we don't have that stuff no more. It's like a philosophy or something to live by. Next slide. So this right here, what this is a spectrum. So just to give you an example about how spectrum works. This is a light spectrum. So it goes from 700 to 380 nanometers. A light spectrum. On the far left is radio waves. We can't see radio waves. We can hear them. We can't see them, but they exist. They're floating in our room right now. Every room, radio waves are floating. So everyone at home, radio waves are staring at you in your face, right in front of you right now. The next one is microwave. Microwave, same thing. We can't see it, but it exists. It's floating in this room, is in this very room right now, in your room, at your house, everywhere, bouncing around our whole earth. But we can't see it with our eyes. Next one is infrared. With our naked eye, we cannot see it. So if without science, those three waves in our mind wouldn't exist, right? Just don't exist because we can't see it. But it does. Now you go to the right is visible light. So I'm sorry, 700 to 380 nanometers is what we can see with our eyes. Those are all the spectrum of colors. That sliver in the middle is the only light that we can see, even though all those other waves exist, all those other light waves exist. So there are colors right now that exist on this planet that we will never be able to see because our eyes can only see that small sliver. Keep going to the right is ultraviolet. There's ultraviolet A and there's ultraviolet B lights. Now, some scientists have machines that can potentially allow us to see something of what ultraviolet looks like, but we still can't see it. It just shows you what things are ultraviolet. It doesn't give you the color. Then you have X-ray and you have gamma rays. Gamma rays will kill your ass. Right? X-rays, if you're getting too many X-rays, that's why when you go to the dentist, they want you to carry around your X-rays because they don't want you to keep getting X-rays because that could damage you too. but they all have a particular light. They have colors that we can't see. Think about that. You'll never be able to see anything outside of your visible light spectrum. Let's go to the next slide. Why is it so? Should be sure you good to read? Mm-hmm. All right.
Just like humans, still far, okay. Just like humans and animals can look at the same subject but see completely different colors based on how their eyes function on the light spectrum, whatever mode we are in determines what we see in the world.
Next slide. And whatever you believe, you're right. So if I say that's blue and you say that's blue too, of course, we're on that same spectrum. We can see blue. I can stare at that blue garbage can, and me and you can argue and be right that that's blue. And another species who sees on a different spectrum will call that a color we've never seen, and we'll call that person crazy. Next slide.
For example, we can't see ultraviolet light with our eyes, but a frog can. We don't even know what the light looks like, but a wolf does. A wolf can smell microwaves. When a bird sees a scorpion, it's glowing.
Ain't that crazy? Ain't that crazy? How dare some other world live outside of what we can see? But it's going to happen, regardless of whether you on this earth or not. Next slide.
So this is how we see this particular bird.
So this particular brown bird that flies around, this is how we see it. Next slide. That's how birds see each other, those same birds. Those same birds see each other like that. So what we may call ugly, unattractive, boring, we're calling them that because of the spectrum we are on. Of the spectrum we're on. So there's a whole different status game, class system going on away from us that doesn't even apply, that we can't even participate in, because we'll see an ugly little brown bird and keep it pushing because we want to see a bright parrot, something with bright colors for our eyes. And that may be the weakest link in the bird chain, but we don't know. And us arrogant ass humans a lot of times will walk around judging the world based on our small sliver of spectrum. Next slide. So, let's go back to the spectrum slide. Keep going. That one. So, now let's play a little game. So you take off the radio waves, erase it, put poverty there. You take off the microwaves, erase it, put survival there. Take off the infrared, erase it, put maintenance there. Take off the visible light, erase it, put growth there. Take off the UVA, erase it, put scaling there. Now, wherever your visible light is all you're going to be able to see. That's it. Wherever your visible light is, that's all you're going to be able to see. So the whole rest of the world that exists won't even exist to you. It won't even exist. So if you're in poverty, rich people are bad. Mm-hmm. Period. It's not a question that they're bad. If you're in poverty, You expect people to give you money for no reason. All you gotta do is this. And you're an asshole or stupid motherfucker or any other bad name if they don't give it to you. Because that's what the wave you're on. Bad shit happens to you. The world is fucked. Like poverty, the poverty spectrum is the spectrum. And there's rules to it. There's a crowd, there's a group, and they're all bunched together on that spectrum, on that section of the spectrum. Period. Ego, all-time high. Poverty looks for other ways. Poverty has its own set of rules, not only rules, but currency. And they have their own set of rules and currency and social status and things that bring them up and down the hierarchy within that small frame. So if you notice, on the poverty side, they ain't got no money, but they got respect. Respect is a currency. You ain't gonna disrespect me. What happens when you disrespect somebody in the poverty spectrum? You getting your eyes socked, getting your jaw rocked, right? Because that I protect that currency of respect. That's why it's weird when two spectrums happen to actually clash against each other, and somebody who's in scaling bumps into a person accidentally in poverty, and they don't even respect. I don't give a fuck about respect. Respect? Well, you disrespect, man. I'm sorry, bro. I would have a nice day. Bless you. Keep it moving. Understand. All right, I'm gonna finish this and I'm gonna go questions. Same with survival. Survival mode has its own set of rules, hierarchy. It has its own set of rules, hierarchy, social status. Within the small sliver of spectrum of survival, it does. And people follow it in its small groups. I mean, it's a group that follows it. Now, here's the deal. Most humans are either in poverty or survival. Or most humans have grown, like they've been raised in either poverty or survival. So this is your default mode. It's your default mode. If I flinched at you, theoretically speaking, not physically, but if I flinched at you, and that flinch means if there's some kind of threat, money threat, this happens, or, lights is off, any kind of threat where there's a quick flinch, your first response comes a lot of times from where you started, unless you do the deep work. And most of us, our deep work is going to end when we die. So we're going to be always constantly. I got punched in the stomach a couple months ago. And what came out? Survivor. So understand. Now, maintenance mode. Maintenance mode has a complete group of folks, a complete set of rules. Their social status and their social currency is completely different than the other two. Maintenance mode, man, you see me outside on the weekends, I'm polishing my old school. And you wave to the other brother who's polishing his old school, or the other sister who's polishing their old school, because we have a psychology that our operations in life run so well that now we have enough to maintain other things, because we built ourselves a little stronger. We maintenance mode. It's a whole different vibration. Weekends. And they see the world the way they can't see the world any other way. That's the thing about these. That's the thing about the spectrum. You cannot see the world any other way when you're stuck on the spectrum. Next is growth mode. Growth mode is the same. Growers see each other. It's like game recognized game. Growers see each other. Growers are the type of folks that they could be best friends and see each other 4 times in 5 months. Because they know, hey, he growing. I know he going after it. She's going after it. She's getting it. I love you, bro. Because growers are constantly challenging themselves. They're trying and failing and trying and failing and going after it and evolving. And you respect the currency is in the growth. It's not in the wins and the losses. It's in the growth. It's in the learning. That's the currency. Every sliver has different currency. And if you don't know the currency, that means you don't know the lay of the land. Last one is scaling. Scaling is another. Scalers think differently than everyone else. They have a completely different psychology. So there were times when I was trying to get funding for my business years ago, and I was meeting with investors, and I would sit there and look at them, and they'd sit there and look at me, and I'm thinking, what the fuck is the problem? And they're looking at me like, you ain't ready. And I'm like, what you mean I'm not ready? This is all the stuff. Because there are invisible lines and words in there that scalers see that I can't see. And it wasn't until I started growing and getting better and going after it and reading and learning that I was like, oh, I thought that said this, but now it says this. I thought that color was green, or better, I thought this was brown, but now I see that it's purple. Because I got better. This is why humility is so imperative as an entrepreneur. Because we're walking around a lot of times with our chest out thinking we know everything. And we're just a tiny sliver of the spectrum. It's not saying that you walk around like depressed. You can have an error. You could be confident. But you could be confident in the fact that you're always growing, learning, and getting better because you're doing the work. It's a difference. So you replace that light scale with this, you have to ask yourself, where are you? And how do you know that you're there? And how do you move to the next one? That's why this class is so important. This class is so important because it's hard to even know. This class will give you the tools. This class will give you the tools to get minor clues to get you to be like, oh shit, let me stop. I'm on survival right now. I'm in poverty mindset right now. I'm in this mindset right now. Even talking to Gabby before class, we were talking about how mean the middle school is, and this and that. And right before it was over, she's like, yeah, but that's because, and she broke down psychologically why they think that way. And I'm like, well, that's whoever you've been around, but that's a great answer. That's because this class gives you the tools. And sometimes you don't always grab the tools because we're human, but that you have access to practice so that you can. Next slide. And I'm going to get to your questions.
When you are stuck on the frequency of survivor mode, the world and everything around it shows up with a color that only you and people like you can see.
Okay, we talked about that. Let's keep going.
No matter their financial status, anyone can be triggered into survivor mode if they grew up in a scarcity environment.
So we talked about it, but I want to reiterate that. Understand, being good now doesn't make you safe.
Mm.
Does not make you safe. It's like a person who hasn't drank, an alcoholic who hasn't drank alcohol in 20 years, they still consider themselves an alcoholic because it doesn't make them safe. Same thing. If we grew up in a scarcity environment, you can't relax. Survival mode is your default. If I flinch that, whatever your default is, to fight, to flight, or to swing, or to run, that's your default. And you have to train yourself out of that. So most of the time we don't have a lot of practice in those. So all the things in life that come far and few between are hard to practice because you don't have enough repetition. So you got to always be on guard. You have to always not be on guard, but you always have to be observing yourself. You have to know yourself. And you have to use your tools. This ain't a class that you just go back and forth intellectually and be the smart person in the room. No, these are tools for you for you to grow, because we all want to be on the scaling side, the growing side. That's where we're going. Hope class is to take is the goal of Hope is to move us up the spectrum from the survival side, the poverty side, to the growth side, the scaling side. And that's not easy to do. It's hard. It's hard. Next slide.
The key component of a survival mindset is the idea of scarcity, which says there is only enough for a small portion of those who need it. So your survival instinct kicks, colors not necessarily for survival fade, and tactical strategies prevail.
You ever lost a relationship with a friend over some bullshit? Is there friends that you had that you knew for a long time and y'all ain't talking? Anybody got into it over some money? Anybody? Am I the only person? Okay. Anybody fuck with your money? You have to tell them about themselves? That's all survival and scarcity, right? Anybody disrespect you? And you had to let them know it was like, you're not going to disrespect, you're not going to talk to me like that. Survival and scarcity. Right? We come from it. We come from it. And I don't know if you ever been conscious enough to realize, to notice, but in those situations, your world went like this. And the only thing important in that mode was that. And everything else faded. All the colors you used to see. There's a term that we use in society that we don't even realize how connected it is in terms of the spectrum. We say, I saw red.
Mm.
I saw red. Man, he says, all I saw was red at that point. Or I blacked out. And when I came out, motherfucker was on the ground.
King Kong ain't got
What you're saying is, I was down the way on the spectrum, living my life. I got punched in the stomach, and I went down here. Bang. So all the little colors I used to see faded. You want to know? You want another example? Have you ever been in a relationship and you was all lovey-dovey? It was amazing. Oh, it was amazing. You were in love. Corny, saying corny shit. Then all of a sudden, these certain songs that you've heard your whole life, now they mean something. They're important. Oh, they feel good when you hear them. Oh, you jamming to this song now. You singing it. Then you and that person break up. Then all the songs about breakup and heartbreak that you hear, now you feel them songs. And when you hear those old love songs you heard 3 weeks ago, you're like, man, fuck this shit, and turn. It feels bad to you. It feels sick to the stomach to hear it, right? Or you don't vibe with it. What you're doing is going up and down the spectrum. You get it? This is crazy. Next slide. So, what do you do?
I don't know what you come to do, but come to praise his name.
Right. So what do you do? What do you do? So this is one of the stories I was going to tell is first half of the year, our business went crazy in a good way. Then it started going crazy in a good way beyond what I was capable of handling. So I'm stretching out. First thing I do that brought me back down to survivor in poverty. Cause I grew up poor, hood, single mama, 64th and Mac, East Oakland, the whole shit. I could keep going, right? So I grew up that way, survivor, nothing to eat. So the first thing in survivor mode told me to do, you better not say no. All this money coming in, you better not say no. And number one. So then our machine starts cracking. Employees are stressed out. Okay, y'all chill. I'm just gonna hire more people. I got it. Hire a couple more people. Still, the capacity even gets bigger. The hype cycle is strong at this moment. So scarcity's kicking in because I don't want to turn down no bread. Machines cracking now. People stressed out. People at the office crying because people working 10, 12 hours a day to try to keep up, staying late, trying to make it happen. And I'm like, good, let's go. We could do this. More business coming in. Guess what? My machine's breaking. But scarcity says, you better not turn down that bread. We made more money in March than we made all of 2020.
Hey.
So guess what? As the business is coming in, I'm like, you better not turn down bread. Meanwhile, my machine's breaking down because scarcity is saying, you better not turn down that bread. Guess what? Machine breaks. $20,000 hit. Bang. Shit. Scarcity kicks in and survivor mode turns up to 10. Survivor mode turns up to 10 because that's a punch in the stomach. What was it? What did the customer say? What was the problem? Okay, well then do this. You know that example that I told you? I did that in March. Do this. Machine's breaking because I didn't turn down no bread. Machine's broken. Cracks, leaking. It's a leak. Guess what? Another 20,000. So now I'm full-blown scarcity mode. I'm working 15 hours a day. I'm I'm pissed off at everybody at the office. I'm short. I'm not happy. I'm coming in. I'm not speaking to nobody. Like all of the spirals and all of the signs of poverty and survival mode are showing up in me. And if I looked at my bank account, I'm on track to make more money than I've ever made in my life times 3. But I'm in full-blown poverty, scarcity mode. And I didn't know it. I didn't know it. I couldn't even tell you it at the time. And you know the day that I found out that I was stuck in survival mode? 2 weeks ago. And you know how? I was driving to work and a car was trying to get over and I wouldn't let him in. And that's not Courtney. And out of all the shit I did in business, that's the only thing that I was like, wait, something's not right with me. That's some survival mode shit. I need to call my dude, Nana. Like 100%. And I'm like, that was my little wave in the matrix that showed me I was on the wrong spectrum. And I did the thing too. I did the thing. I'm the slowest, nicest driver. Man, I'm good. I got money. I ain't tripping. Like my life is, anybody can come in. You can do all the, I did the thing where, no. And looked at him like, say something. I'll slap the shit out you. And I'm like, oh, that's 2007. So I started doing the math, the money, I added it all up. I didn't take any responsibility for the mistakes my staff was making. I'm just on them for the mistakes. But I broke the system by not saying no because my scarcity kicked in and I didn't want to not take the money. So like it goes back to, it don't matter how much money you got. If you come from that, it's the tools and being aware enough to say, damn, there's this bend in the matrix going on. There's some weird thing. My behavior is not, I completely wrote it off as like, this is scaling. This is how scaling goes. It's just chalk it up to scaling is stressful. Scaling is stressful. No. It's scarcity is stressful.
Come on now.
So understand, in the what do you do? The first thing you do, you have to be aware. You have to be acutely sensitive to yourself. And you have to know what it looks like in each part of the spectrum. So when your behavior starts mimicking that behavior, whether your brain's going to justify it all day, but you got to say, I need to phone a friend. Shabisha stopped me in the hallway. Like, if I wouldn't have been here to say this, then you would have got a phone call. Because that's how you get down in this space. Any questions?
Just before there's any questions, please look online, folks, because the Hope email, something's going on weird with it, and our administrator is sick with a flu, so we're trying to reach him to change it. So just send your emails to shabisha@fitmedia.com. We want to flash on the screen. Just keep it on the screen for a little while. So those of you at home, just look on the screen. You'll see Shabisha@fitmedia questions. If you already sent in your questions, just forward it to the Shabisha@fitmedia.com. Number 2, I love this class. Oh my God. Like I'm over here, I've been struggling for 3 months how to explain this. And I feel like I watched a masterpiece. That was so well explained. Like I feel like I want to just clip this portion of class and send it to all the people I've been trying to explain to them the impacts of survival mode. I can't explain it any better. It's almost one of the most powerful compromisers in our community, and we keep collapsing and falling. and we personalize and think it's ourselves. But this class was just fucking amazing.
Thank you, bro.
Oh my God.
Thank you.
I remember the word I said. One, compromise.
Compromised. That was the
Compromise.
word.
That was the word.
I love that word. I'm compromised. Compromise doesn't mean you got all the answers. You just feel some kind of I know I'm compromised. I don't know what it is yet, but that's the first step. That's all you need. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So my question for you was, do you remember the very next thing that you did? So after you called Nana, that was the, what, I know I need to process through this. Everything in me is like, release me. I want out now, right? I want to hurry up and skip past all of this. I know I can't do that. But how did you start to get yourself from that space? Was it instant, or did you need to do a couple of things?
No, I would venture to say that I'm still not 100% out. Okay. But what I did do was go in manual mode. Manual mode means stop feeling, because feeling got me fucked up, and those feelings are compromised because those feelings are they're survival mode feelings. So what are the manual things I need to do? I need to stop. I need to take a deep breath. I need to take a break. Internally, all those things are anti what I want to do because I'm in survival mode. I'm in manual mode now, meaning what do people in growth mode do? What would a person in growth mode do? I need to stop and write down all the things that I need to do. And after I write them down, let's strategize each of these things. Now, my brain is like, that's a waste of time. We got shit to do. But I'm saying, yeah, that's because we're in survival mode right now. But a growth mindset and a scalar would do exactly what I'm doing. So shut the fuck up. So it's manual mode, and knowing what those manual mode things are, you just do it. And again, that's where going to the gym comes in fucking handy, because you don't want to go to the gym. You don't want to do them reps. You don't want to do them sets. You don't want to show up. You don't want to do the cardio. But you go in manual mode in your mind and says, I don't care what you don't want to do. We're going to do this workout. And so I take that and I translate that over to this same philosophy. Is, we're going to do it. What are the steps? And I'm not fully out yet. I think that's why I was so excited for this class. But even though the situations are similar, I feel better. I feel clearer. I'm getting out of and in survival mode, how you doing? I'm all right. Y'all know this. I said it every fucking week for the first half of this year. How you doing, Court? I'm all right. Man, I'm all right. What? I'm all right. Even the good shit, man, that's all right. That's because in survival mode and poverty mode, nothing's never good enough. It's never. We've been killing it in some parts of our business, killing it. And I ain't been my eyes haven't been open to see it this whole time until now. I was like, hey, y'all, today, hey, come on, let's sit down, order some tacos and food. I'm like, look, first off, I want to apologize. I've been locked in, and I take responsibility for our mistakes, not you. You guys killed it. I knew the system was breaking, and I allowed it to break. It was my fault. You guys do an amazing job. Look at A, B, C, D, E of the things we've accomplished. And you could just feel the room get lighter. Like, ooh. And then they start talking. Yeah, and then everybody starts talking about the successes and stuff, because the dark cloud in the room was me. Manual mode. Next question.
While she's passing the mic, let me share a story. I think when people think about survival mode, they think about extreme poverty. Mm-hmm. Most black folks, if you grew up in a family where you almost miss rent payments, or you lived in an apartment, your mother raised you in an apartment, or you was raised near the hood or in the hood, or you went to public schools. You may have had a cool life, but you were taught survival mode principles because your mother and father probably was in survival mode. Mm. And so you would think, oh, I'm a middle class person, but you're only looking at the black community when you say that. If you look at America, you was close to the poverty line. Mm-hmm. So I have a friend, he born in East Oakland, he owns his house. So during COVID, he's rolling. He's making money. He's in $1 million game. And I try to get him to come sit with us and come to class. Because this is rule that says you don't practice for the problem you see, you practice for the problem you don't see. So that's kind of what this class is about. And so just discover that he is such in deep survivor mode that he only does good in business if his back is against the wall. Mm. If his back is not against the wall, he's bored. He doesn't even have the same drive. But so in the end, what he does, unconscious to himself, is as soon as he makes $1 million, he may go buy a house or something, or $2 million. He would go buy a house and put himself down where he now only has $200,000 or $300,000 in the bank. He always keeps his money on the edge, not because he's not capable of generating resources, but he always self-sabotages himself. Now watch how cool this is. So when his money is low, he almost turns into a person you don't recognize because he'll make these decisions like, why are you doing this? That don't make no sense. And he's unconsciously trying to put himself in an uncomfortable position because he got used to being in survival mode. Now watch this. Mm-hmm. Remember, the only way you can domesticate uncertainty is increase optionality. So what he does is, because if you create, there's another thing about another level of a way to keep your business stable is you got to have slack. If your business is too tight, one thing will fall, and it's like domino effect. Numerous things will fall. So in business, you got to keep a little space in your life, a little freedom to think, a little time for yourself. You got to create space. Even the way you run your processes, if everything's too tight, one thing will crumble and it will have a huge effect. So what he did with his money was he had his money tied to the stock market, real estate, this. Everything's on the edge where he had to live. Now his day-to-day life is down to everyday person life because all of his money's tied up. And everything came crashing down at the same time. Mm. He went from $1 million to $10,000. What? Y'all heard what I just said, $1 million to $10,000. I'm not even exaggerating what I'm saying. He has a house he brought, he can't move in because he can't afford to move in. Because he was in scarcity mode and he kept himself right on that edge where he could not tolerate any variance or volatility. So scarcity is you could be making money, rolling, smart business person, but you're positioning yourself to be so fragile and you're actually more comfortable being fragile than being secure.
Sheesh.
I feel like you just talked about my mama. I feel like you just talked about my mama. Jesus.
Just really quick, if you could, because I ran over to write the note and then it left my brain. Yeah. You said the only way to domesticate uncertainty, you have to what?
Create optionality. So if you don't have multiple options, and you also need, so there's 3 things you need to focus on. Well, 3, there's more than 3, but there's 3 core things you want to focus on in surviving a world of volatility and variations and uncertainty. Is you got to have modularity, you have to have redundancy, you have to have slack. All 3 of those are necessary. If your time, your schedule, your business, everything is ran really, really tight on the edge, it will take a soft wind to take down. It's almost like, imagine when you see a bomb hit a building and it only hits a little small portion, but the rest of the building is standing still. Some of y'all, if that bomb hits, that half your town falls apart. And so running your business too tight is destructive. You got to, even with your employees can't be where every minute of their time is accounted for. Because if you need, for any reason, management to make a call and have them shift, and the time is too tight, they can't make the shift. And because they can't make the shift, you put yourself to be defeated by competition. So slack is part of the equation. So when you're suffering from survivor mode, you're managing slack as it has to be used up. all that space has to be used up. You have to be tight on everything. Everything has to be super, super tight, but you're super, super fragile. And so it's one of these things where a lot of people who are performing, because we have a lot of millionaires now in this class, and a lot of them think, oh, that's not me. No, it is you. Because you don't realize that invisible spectrum of how you processing business is driven by this hidden relationship to survival mode.
Last question.
So bringing in both points, because now as someone who is trying to learn that different version of myself. So my first question is, how do you first identify that version of yourself that you previously knew? Was it the pettiness? Was it the small action? Because you said it was the small action that triggered you to recognize it. And then that scarcity without knowing that you're there. Like, how is it that you can come to the identification of where your scarcity is when you don't even realize that you have it?
Great question. Way number one is you train in other parts of the spectrum. You train in other parts of the spectrum. That allows you, it gives you context. Let's go back to context. And it gives you, it stretches out your capacity. So when you train in other parts of the spectrum, you're gaining capacity. So if you grew up in poverty mode and you had somebody who wasn't in poverty, say they was in maintenance, they even lived close to the hood, but the brother he was never in a rush. He had a nice car that he was cleaning in the summertime, and that was just his summertime car. And he had and he was like, damn, how come everybody's so poverty stricken and running around? And if you were to hang out with him and learn his philosophies, you expand, you stretch out your capacity. Same if you knew somebody who was rich or if you knew somebody who was wealthy. And wherever you train at, now it doesn't mean that when you get punched in the stomach, you're not going to be like, oh shit, and not run back to where you're comfortable, because that's going to happen. It's just now you can see the difference. I watched him and I watch him and I see how he moves and I see how he gets down. I drive in the car. I see all the small nuances and I learn all the small nuances. And now I manually know what it's like to be in another part of the spectrum. And so now you can see the difference. And if you're practicing to be on that rhythm, then you start to be able to feel the differences. Now, when there's an event, that's another form of training, but that's how you know. So that's why it's like, wait a minute, something's not right. Something's not right. Is that helpful? And we got to go because I want to hear this second half of the class.
Yeah, just one more online.
Just one question. So if making lots of money doesn't cure survival mode,
Not at all. Ain't got nothing to do with it.
what are examples of what will? So in our last class, Nana, you said we should work on mapping ourselves out of survival mode.
Okay, let me make it a little easier, real fast on that real quick. Let me add to his answer. Human beings, we're really so. In a lot of behavior science books I'm reading, what we discover about the brain is that the brain is really good at analyzing other people and horrible analyzing self. It sucks, right? The brain can know 40 mental models, but you probably only use 3, right? But your brain, you think you use all 40, but you're only using 3, right? Or maybe 2 or 3. This is common for all people. But when you judge by all 40, right? So why is that important?
Fascinating.
Let's go back to the basics. This is such a basic. I was just talking to Court earlier about this class. The shit Court is teaching is so damn powerful. The people around you is how you catch yourself in survival mode. If you're around a whole bunch of survival mode people who just don't even know what that is, and it's invisible to them, they don't even see this as spectrum, they're not having this conversation, they're not seeking out the processes, they're not looking for the different philosophies and methods. Because even if, let's just say, Shakina's in survival mode, I'm in survival mode. I mean, we're both under that umbrella, but we're both seeking out the ability to see survival mode, not in ourselves, but in other people. But if she's in my circle, she can see me. That means your feedback loop's got to be, I'm talking about robust. I was just saying in my 510 media meeting, I was like, yo, I am who I am because Mashama disagrees with me. He's a person that can check me and say, hey, bro, why you say it that way? And I'm like, why did I say it that way? Right? You're going to have court will come at me in a second, be like, hey, why'd you say it this way? Right? I need them to do that. It's not, I don't see them as, oh, here they come again. It's not offensive. I need them to get into my life and tell me, yo, I see you doing something and I'm not sure about that. Right? You got to surround yourself with, what destroys most of us is we surround ourselves with people that make us comfortable. And those comfortable people are in survival mode too. That's why you're so comfortable with them. And you, I like them. Oh, they're so much fun. Oh, they make me feel so good. Yeah, they are enabling your survival mode. And so you got to design your environment. Let me say this last point. This is so important. I'm getting to this another day. There's two brains. Most of us think that the brain in our head dominates. No, it's the second brain. The first brain is the situation and environment you live in. No matter how intelligent you are, your choices come from the environment and the situation you're in. Situation dictates your level of intelligence output. So if you're not designing your intelligence, your environment, then your intelligence is compromised by your lack of design controlling the environment you're in.
Last point. If you were to take that point and you run it through a filter, what's the percentage of lottery winners that stay rich after a year? Money don't solve it. Money don't solve it. If you're in poverty mindset or survival mindset, and you got $1 million, that million to be gone quick because the universe abhors a vacuum. The vacuum is the mindset. Give a shit about the money. That's money is the result of the mindset. So you don't get to. That's just how it go. We're going of the mindset. So we're gonna have a brief intermission, and I'll see y'all.
Man, that was beautiful. Can we get applause for that class? That was amazing. That was amazing. Corey, you growing, boy.
That was phenomenal.
What's the deal, y'all? What's the deal? Oh, you switch our waters, huh? Yeah, okay, thank you, family. Yeah, I ain't drinking no other man's water. You understand me? Shit. Just say this rules to this game. I ain't gonna mess up my reputation on the block. Yeah, now I was drinking coarse water. Pause. Okay, I'm gonna lower the table a little bit. I'm not as tall as Court either. I'm gonna set up my height. This is gonna be intense. I'm gonna move aggressively, but tonight my goal is to fuck up the way you think. If you combine, I will say tonight is gonna be, if you combine what I'm about to teach and what Court has taught, I will honestly say it's gonna be a huge change. I'm talking about, in class you can learn for everybody, there's different things that have huge change. And because I dedicate so much time in observation and studying culture, and especially studying our people, but studying culture, studying poverty, studying human behavior, the first portion of this class has so much weight that let me encourage you to go back and watch it again. Mm-hmm. Just do me a favor. Don't treat it as just a, y'all, some of y'all went to church and y'all remember what the pastor say? Watch yourself, Jamar. And then no one really records it, so it's just in the back of your mind. You can take it off intermission now, just how you go to the next slide. Hopefully you can get my intermission online. Shabish, get ready because we're going to flow strong tonight. But let me say this. The stuff you just heard from Court is huge. I would honestly say that all of our people, men, women, young, old, straight or gay, are brilliant, but it's these invisible things that's destroying us, not the visible things. And because we don't understand these invisible variables, abstract things that you can't see, a lot of us end up blaming ourselves, and then we become depressed and stressed and angry and frustrated. Why me? Defeated, victimized. And none of that's true. Two, this entrepreneurship is not about intelligence. It's about growing a new branch of thinking. The intelligence that you get from school, you get from parenting, you get from culture, it's not enough. It's not enough. Sorry, it's not enough. And some of you guys might think, oh, damn, I was stupid. I didn't know that. No, no one's stupid. You haven't grown that branch yet. And if you're not dedicated to growing that branch does not exist. Last, well, just jump into this lesson. You ready, Sharisha?
Yes.
All right, let's get rolling, because I'm gonna put your thinking caps on, but it's gonna sound simple for a minute, and then I'm gonna just kind of try to break your thought pattern. My goal is when you go home, you'll never be able to look at TV the same ever again. You won't be able to watch news the same ever again. You will read articles. It's gonna fuck you up, and that's my number one intent, is to change the way you process the world around you. And if it doesn't, send me an email at thehope@510media.com. By the way, it's back up. hope@510media.com. If I don't break your thoughts, let me know. But I doubt it. I doubt it where I'm about to go. Go for it. Let's go, Sharisha.
The difference between the detailed web of knowledge in the lifer's head and the surface knowledge in the stranger's head is the difference between being inside a circle of competence and being outside the perimeter.
It feels like Court designed this class to be the perfect lead into this. This is going to be like the extension. Context over content. Let me just say this real quick. When you first start your business, you're not a lifer. All the new entrepreneurs, or if you launch a new idea in your business. So you have a business that's up and running, but you launch a new branch or a new idea. You're not a lifer. You got content, you have no context. It's very important to know this, because going back to the story there was a guy that's in a town that knew everything about the town. He's been there for quite some time. He knows where bodies are buried. He knows when the mayor didn't pay his taxes, so forth and so on. A new guy comes in. He only has content. He walks into town and automatically assumes that he has just as much knowledge as a person who has context. Meaning, when you're amongst seasoned entrepreneurs and you're new to the game, even if you have a higher college degree, you don't have context. That's very important. Keep going, Sharisha.
True knowledge of a complex territory cannot be faked.
Mm-hmm.
The lifer could stump the stranger in no time, but not the other way around.
So for example, if you're in business and you're going into competition, you're new, it's a very strong chance you're going to get that ass whooped. Because a lifer, which is somebody who has context, seasoned, wisdom, been in the game for quite some time, your articulate communication will not trump them. You will try to impress them with, terms and theories. But when it actually comes time to go to war, this is like, for example, going to the stock market because you read books. You are bait. You are bait. These boys play this game. They have experience. You don't have that experience. And so without that experience, you're playing amongst the sharks. This is very important, because this will teach you why the humility is necessary in the beginning, especially like the higher the level of humility, the faster you can accelerate the process. And don't assume because you have a degree, you shouldn't be humble. Don't assume that if you have expertise in a different field and you move to another field, you should be humble. If you're the CEO of one company and you have to go get your car fixed, don't assume that you understand mechanics. You have to humble. Anytime you enter any new field, there's a necessary need for being humble. Keep going.
Consequently, as long as the lifer is operating in his circle of competence, he will always have a better understanding of reality to use in making decisions. Having this deep knowledge gives him flexibility in responding to challenges, because he will likely have more than one solution to every problem. And this depth increases his efficiency. He can eliminate bad choices quickly because he has all the pieces of the puzzle.
a lot of people that come out of college, they're generalists. A lot of professors are generalists, right? And if you go into survival mode, if I ask you a question and you're threatened with a problem, you're probably going to either reach for a general solution or you're going to reach for a binary solution. A lifer is aware of multiple real solutions. Meaning that somebody who's mature in something, anybody that's been running their business for a long time, if you ever met somebody new into the game, they come in, well, as a person in event planning, what I usually do, and a person who does event planning, listen the whole time going, there's about 20, 30 other options you can do, right? So in order to avoid that process, you have to recognize your level of competence. The more you think you have more competence than you really do have, the more you will spend time assuming that you're qualified just because you can sound like people in the industry. I can't tell you how many times people come to me about marketing and branding because they knew some of the terminology. Mm-hmm. But when they're faced with the problems, they can't make those decisions. They can't see the play. They can't see the options. They're trying to go to these basic generic moves or very 1-2 punch moves, and it just doesn't translate. Go next slide. Go ahead.
For most of us, climbing to the summit of Mount Everest is outside our circles of competence.
Keep going.
Not only do we have no real idea how to do it, but even more scary, should we attempt it, we don't even know what we don't know. Mm-hmm. If we studied hard, maybe we'd figure out the basics.
So please, pause, excuse me. Studying will not trump experience. Studying will enhance the experience. Studying will accelerate the experience. So studying will improve the experience. Studying will give you insight to translate the experience, because without studying, it's hard to translate the value of the experience. But don't think because you read books on certain subjects or you watched a YouTube video or you have a friend who's an entrepreneur or whatever else the damn excuse you use that says, I haven't done it, but I'm going to validate myself through this outside source. Meaning, no. Look, how many of you guys think you can be great parents? Raise your hand. You think you can be great parents? Okay. I love that the youngster raised her hand, which is beautiful. That was a beautiful, it couldn't have been a better show. She just did the same move. She's not a lifer. She's a newbie. All she has is theories. When a child rise, she's like, shit. I had no damn idea. All the parents in this room was like, my hand is going under the table. I don't even want to raise this damn hand. Because they realize this shit is complex as hell. There is no such thing as a manual of parenting. If you took your grandparents' manual, you know why it won't work? The situations change. The variables change. Their variances change. There's so many things that change. So there's some things that don't really change, right? But there's so many things that have changed. That's a very fact that when somebody's parenting and the person the child you're changing is a variance. There's all kind of kids out there. So one thing that worked on one child won't work on another child, right? But it's so easy, as a youngster displayed, that you can assume in your mind you're qualified. Now, what happens if she, just say the youngster, let's just make up a story for her. It's all lies. It's not what the youngster said. Let's say she cuts off ties with her mother and grandparents. Let's say all of her friends are young like her. Parents, y'all know y'all getting scared now. Y'all realize she need those lifers to help her parent. I'm talking about the first 2 months. You need lifers because you scared as hell. This baby's doing things it was not in your manual. You didn't read in that nice little cute parenting book on how to be a good mother and father. And on top of that, you in the hood, and this shit going on outside, that this white person, when they wrote the book, doesn't apply to you. You see the difference? Let's keep rolling.
We'd learn about the training, the gear, the process, the time of year, all the things an outsider could quickly know. But at what point would you be satisfied that you knew enough to get up there and back with your life intact? And how confident would you be in this assessment?
So you see how that works? So in your mind, you think you can do anything. Oh, I know what I'm doing. In the Black community, you can tell, I sometimes invite people to an entrepreneur class. Oh, I know what Nana knows. Would you put money on that? That's the thing. The circle of your circle of competence is such an egotistical distortion that we do in all of our parts of our life. You start, I'm gonna do this new thing in my business because I see other gyms, other businesses, other organizations, other restaurants, other services are doing. Do you have circle competence? And some of you, because you don't realize you don't have circle competence, you feel you could just figure it out. I hate that word in business, figure it out. I hate that word. You know how much figure it out cost? That shit is expensive. Right? And you don't know to go grab somebody's coat. This is a time when you're supposed to grab somebody's coat. When you want to do something new, most entrepreneurs, we have 1,000 lifelines. You know how many lifelines I have when I don't know something? I'm going to call this person. Where should I study? I will even volunteer if I have to, depending on what stage I am in a career, if it's that serious. Because why? I need that knowledge. Because guess what? I'm a newbie. But we fall into these titles. See, some of you guys came from corporate America. And you're the director of marketing. Come out here in the real world, you're the director of nothing. Nothing. Remember a long time ago, I told Kaj, I said, Kaj, what'd you do at your job? I forgot what she said. I said, guess what? In the real world, you suck. Kaj looked at me like, no, I'm gonna beat you up. Right? And of course, I don't want to mess with Kaj because 2 reasons. I think she might beat me up. Number 2, I don't want to mess with my cake. Anyway, to be very clear, yes, I'm gonna sell out to Kaj every time. but the thing was but she was shocked. And why was she shocked? Because in your brain, corporations and especially nonprofits, they develop a false sense of intelligence and competence. Next slide. Go ahead.
There are approximately 200 bodies on Everest, not to mention the ones that have been removed.
I would say there's approximately 97% of the public who failed in business, broke as hell because, and that's not counting the ones who think they still in business. Keep going.
All of those people thought they could get up and down alive.
Mm-hmm.
The climate preserves their corpses, almost as a warning. The ascent to the summit takes you by the bodies of people who once shared your dreams.
Oh. So even though, that's actually a true statement, but the same thing happens. Like, a lot of you guys are starting businesses today, and you're going to talk to a lot of people who have died already in the game. And you're going to walk right by them and think you can do everything they didn't do. And you have all this insight because your passion got you fucked up, only to become the newest body on the side of the mountain. Next slide.
How do you know when you have a circle of competence? Within our circles of competence, we know exactly what we don't know.
Oh, wait a minute. Freeze. That goes back to what Court said a minute ago. You know how you know what you don't know? You got to study. And once you study more, and once you hang around people who are seasoned more, the more you learn, what they said, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. Some of y'all know so much because you ain't been learning. Y'all so smart, y'all ignorant. Keep going.
We are able to make decisions quickly and relatively accurately.
Mm-hmm.
We possess detailed knowledge of additional information we might need to make a decision with full understanding, or even what information is unobtainable. We know what is knowable and what is unknowable and can distinguish between the two.
Let me say this too. Knowing what's knowable and what's unknowable, the unknowable part is not human. Your brain, okay. This is one of the areas, there's some things I'm going to teach later on, but let me show you some way your brain works. Let's say you're looking at a problem or a challenge or whatever in front of you, and it's murky. It's kind of blurry. You're not sure of all the details, right? Guess what your brain will do automatically? It starts filling the details. And the longer those details go unchallenged, the more you build confidence. And the longer it takes, the more you attach your identity to it. So when a teacher comes along, you don't hear the knowledge and change. You know what you do? You take the nuances of that was deep what Court just said, and you try to integrate it into your distortion, creating another mutation of the ignorance you possess. Matter of fact, it takes so long for you to change, you actually have to get slapped in the face before you go, oh shit, and replace that idea. But up to that point, you've been trying to make your old idea that you've developed confidence from your murky perception. You've been taking that flawed ass thinking with limited information that you backfill with all this false information and take the new information you learn and you're trying to make the two work together. And this whole time you've been producing this weird offset and you think you're intelligent because you can quote it so well because you developed the language and words to make it sound like there's something there. This is why most teachers don't want it. Like, for example, I used to do Chicago stepping religiously. And if you went to one instructor to learn the dance and you went to another instructor, and that instructor, the first instructor was a bad instructor, the second instructor really didn't want to teach you. Because they realized you're going to be super hard to teach. They wanted a newbie that had a fresh mind, that didn't build any preconceived notions. All right, I'm going to take it a little deeper because I don't want to leave you here. It's this thing called Bayesian theory. It says, whatever you know, see it as a hypothesis. And whatever you learn new, see as a hypothesis. And then weigh out the hypothesis to guesstimate what you want to do next. Many of you guys see what you know as facts. What you learn is new facts. And that in itself disables your ability to process and think. In conclusion, there's a famous saying that says this. Write this down, everybody. If you are not open-minded, you are not thinking. Simple. If you're not open-minded, if you think your past is facts and your future is facts, you're closed-minded. Everything you know is just a hypothesis. So, if you're not open-minded, you're not thinking. Everybody wrote that down. Write that down at home. Shit, use a chalk. Take your child's chalk and write on the wall for those parents. Seriously, this is a cold-blooded one. Do you realize if you really embrace that thinking, you can't argue it anymore? You know how hard it is to argue if you realize your past and your new things you learn is just a hypothesis? How do you argue? What you're saying is, well, I think, well, what I come to understand, let me hear where you're coming from. So, I never thought about it that way. Let me weigh out that information. There may be some value there. Do you understand how, in a world that's uncertain and things are always changing, competition is changing the paths, the organic paths that we're navigating. It's always changed by competition and the way the world works. If you have this deep committed relationship to what you know, and deep committed relationship to some shit you just read in a book, you're too rigid to drive on this changing road. You can't drive. Many of you will fail because you are too confident in your beliefs. Mm-hmm. Many of you will fail because you're too confident in your perspectives. Everything you know should be a hypothesis. And as you move forward, as you learn new things, it's just a hypothesis. Your beliefs are nothing but an educated guess. This is leadership and wolf talk. I'm not talking to the dogs. Dogs, do what you gotta do. You understand? And for the kittens, I get it. Next slide.
Waiting for Thriller to come on every time.
Go ahead.
We can anticipate and respond to objections because we've heard them before and already put in the work of gaining the knowledge to counter them.
Wait a minute, read that again, because I think that was kind of tight, and I think it's kind of the same thing, but go ahead.
We can anticipate and respond to objections because we've heard them before and already put in the work of gaining the knowledge to counter them.
Keep going.
We also have a lot of options when we confront problems in our circles. Our deep fluency in subjects we are dealing with means we can draw on different information resources and understand what can be adjusted and what is invariant.
So, your circles. When you confront your circles of knowledge, right? Okay. This is so important. Why you have it. So sometimes this is another thing. I want to kind of challenge this from a different angle for a second because I was debating in my head which thing I want to hit this from. And this is one of the reasons I hate when people start a business and they want to move on to something else or they want to do multiple things at one time. You don't give yourself the time to develop a circle of competence. And because you don't have a circle of competence, you don't really know how to navigate your core business. You don't know what you can and cannot do, what is possible, what the market will permit. Like business is like, I had somebody call me the other day and they was talking about selling T-shirts. And I wouldn't call them back. I didn't. And it's not that I don't believe in selling T-shirts. I think T-shirt business is an amazing business. But they was like, nah, we got this dope-ass T-shirt. And we want to sell this dope-ass T-shirt. All their value was on the T-shirt. There's no value to me on the T-shirt. The way this game works is that you're selling a T-shirt. I put this podcast out by Johnny 100. A T-shirt's a T-shirt. This shit's been around since 1950. You ain't doing nothing new. What you really are doing is creating a marketing message for them to buy T-shirts from you. You're not even in the business of that one T-shirt. You're in the business of moving product. And if you don't understand the business of moving products and doing business and branding and marketing and positioning and all these other things, then what you're trying to do is use T-shirts to express your personal value, not actually be in business. But your circle of competence, when you first get into business, you don't have a circle of competence around T-shirts, about business of T-shirts. You think the design of a T-shirt is everything. When in theory, it's not. The reason I didn't call this person back because their ego is just talking to the ego is like talking to a television and getting the response. You ever watch TV, like, don't go in that room? That's what it feels like when I talk to them. It's just talking to the TV. And so in business, the more you're seasoned in business, you understand the things that matter, your numbers and the market position, brand, where you need to be at, who you need to be building relationships with. You can't see any of that stuff if you're in a position where in business, you kind of, when you're a newbie, you focus on like the T-shirt, the colors, the material. I had big sales at this one place, this one relationship. You don't really see the whole infrastructure. So circle competence gives you this. When Shakina asked earlier, she says, now that I'm in a position to run my business, what should I focus on? First, gain competence. Gain competence of your industry. Gain competence of your market. Gain competence of your business. And then you start to see your business totally, totally different. Next slide. I'm moving kind of fast because I want to get somewhere.
There is no shortcut to understanding. Building a circle of competence takes years of experience, of making mistakes, and of actively seeking out better methods of practice and thought.
Okay. I was talking to a young man the other day. When you get into this business thing, it's so much about circle of competence, it's ridiculous. I told a young man the other day that imagine if I taught you how to work on a 1975 Mustang. And I taught you every damn detail on how to build a 1975 Mustang. In 2023, do you have a job? If you stop learning. Shit, no. Right? You realize in order for you to have a job in 2023, every year you need to learn updates on the Mustang, correct? So how in the hell are you in business and you're not constantly learning? Everything's always changing. Whether you're growing is a change, whether competition is change, whether trend markets are changing, whether whatever is changing, whether culture is changing, whether politics are changing, Business is in constant growth and change. Competition is getting better. New products are coming to the market. How is it that you call yourself an entrepreneur and you don't practice learning? It's synonymous. So a lot of us think I can be an entrepreneur without learning. It's not possible. It's not possible. It's not, because all you are is that newbie with a lot of content, and those who are learning all the time are practicing lifers. And so in business, you will always be learning. In business, you will always be mentored. In business, you will always be mentoring. I heard somebody tell me one day, I'm tired of being mentored.
That's a very common thing in the early stage, business idea stage of entrepreneurs. There is a going cultural trope that says we are over mentored and underfunded. And so so many new founders grab onto that as a reason why they are not accelerating, because it explains it is a reason for them not having access to capital. So it's an equity discussion, but that is so common. It's everywhere now.
Yeah, it's because that's extension of social justice, which is
Yes.
the fact that the reason you don't have capital is because you haven't learned how to get capital yet. I know how to get capital. I've built up layers of relationships, experiences. Like a wolf, I know where to go in the woods to go get my food. The person who's come from a dog environment, which is a job, they're used to everything being curated, even where to eat and how much you can eat, because this is what your paycheck is, right? So in a sense, when they're saying that, they're coming into the game from extension of college, jobs, I'm now an entrepreneur, and then that language sounds good to your ears because that's the circle you in, right? Sure. I feel sorry for you black folks who go to these, incubator programs where you're there for like 3 weeks and you get $10,000, $20,000. There's a reason you don't feed wild animals.
Sorry. Wait.
Huh? Am I lying? There's a reason. The dependency can cause danger to both parties. Out here, I'm sorry, the entrepreneur game, look, man, you got to learn to eat. You got to learn to eat. You got to learn how to create value and then sell that value to somebody. You got to learn how to serve your customers. There is no entitlement in this game. And in the old words of old Nana from 2017, fuck your feelings and fuck your emotions. Don't you do it. Don't you do it. So what I'm saying to you guys is that's a very dog philosophy. That's why I say there's a difference between dogs and wolves. An entrepreneur, you're becoming a wolf. And unfortunately, and also too, because you go to those incubator programs, let's call them for what they are, because they're disrespectful to some of us black folks. I think a lot of beautiful black people are in incubator programs, and a lot of amazing black people are in incubator programs, and they're only about to get burned. And why you say that, Nana? Some of them start getting used to just being in that. That's how they make at the end of the year, they get $60,000, $80,000, $100,000 a year, and majority of that came from them programs. Let's keep it 100. They never learn how to hunt because somebody keeps throwing dead food in front of them. When somebody gives you $10,000, it's dead food laying on the ground in front of you, and you think you're a hunter. Looking at the other wolf like, I could growl just like you. Got him! So at the end of the day, what happens with these programs is white folks are showing up tomorrow because white folks are stuck in this idea that they know what's best for you. They don't look at you and gain insights. They're passing down solutions. So, the black community needs $10 million. I'm going to send $10 million to Oakland, California, so we can get a whole bunch of black entrepreneurs to grow. They don't see the psychological damage of slavery, Jim Crowism, and the crack era. They don't see the household trauma you was born in. They don't see the cultural layer. They don't see the spectrums. And you go there with an innocent soul looking for support. But you don't realize that people who try to mentor you, they shouldn't be mentoring themselves. They got people who got jobs, who have degrees, who can use words really, really well, who use generic ass theories, who sit around and talk to you about business plans. If you don't get the fuck out of my face, they're telling you to plan for a world you don't even know what it look like. In the beginning, your business plan should be about as loose as it gets. And every time you discover something, that should be getting updated every day. But the reality is that they convince you that if you planned it, it will come to existence because you came from not knowing anything and you speaking on something. So at the end of the day, if you didn't question you guys have, just write them down because I'm gonna give a section for questions. So at the end of the day, those programs are creating, they say when you feed a wild animal, the animal could put themselves in danger because then they come to expect that this is a relationship that's okay. A wild animal sometimes can eat the food and that food won't help with their particular digestive system and can cause damage to the animal. I would say when you give entrepreneurs money because they sold you a story, not experience. They sold you a story, not investors. They sold you a story. You just damaged that animal because you told them their story means something. And in business, your story is not business. Your customer alignment is business. Your story has to adjust based upon what the market lets you tell. You don't get to write your own rap song and be famous because you wrote it. Next slide.
One of the essential requirements of a circle of competence is that you can never take it for granted.
Keep going.
You can't operate as if a circle of competence is a static thing.
Whoa, stop. I just said that, but I want to just double down on that. Some of y'all take this class and go, I got it. There's no getting this. You will never take this class and I got it. I can't tell you how many people, and this is really probably for the people online because most people in this room have been riding for a minute. And there's a lot of people online that's been riding for a minute. But most people think they just need to learn this business stuff. What book do I need to read? I think you just need to keep reading. That's all of them. And whatever new ones come out, just get in line.
I need to breathe and drink water.
But the reality is that this is how our brain thinks it's a destination, or I am an entrepreneur. I know this entrepreneur stuff. Once you say that, I know you know nothing. Because once you come out here, you realize this shit throws haymakers at you on a sunny day at the barbecue right before you about to eat a piece of rib. Like imagine somebody punching you in your jaw and you smiling and they playing Frankie Beverly and Maisie, Frankie Beverly and Maze, and the sun is out, you in your tank top, the balloons are playing, the kids in front of you, you about to put that rib in your mouth and somebody knock you the fuck out. That's how business feels. Like literally things could be going great and all of a sudden, what the hell? Right? And it will come from places you will least expect because you're dealing with so many different variances. Right? And so if you're not always learning, they said Adobe, when Adobe designed Photoshop, Adobe said the designers just start putting tools in Photoshop and had no idea how anybody would ever use them. But they said that they were gonna let the way they designed it so the artist could figure it out. The power of that lesson is that when you're learning, you're not learning for the problem you're facing or the problem you just faced. You're learning for the problem you don't know when it's gonna come. So you always practicing this game. You're always practicing. So circle of competence, even if let's just say, we use Shakina gym, let's use your gym again. Her gym is under different threats every day. The knowledge she gained about her gym, her competence level of her gym that she gained last year is already being outdated or is becoming outdated. Why? Because as competition comes to the game and as trends change, a lot of her models are already, they're starting to lose their value. You see where I'm going with this? So she's not always even learning about the business she's in. The business she is doesn't stay the same. So circle of competence is a responsibility, a lifelong responsibility that you don't stop until your eyes close. Keep going on that one.
The world is dynamic. Knowledge gets updated, and so too must your circle.
Right on. Next slide.
There are 3 practices needed in order to build and maintain a circle of competence.
This is necessary. Let's go for it.
Curiosity and a desire to learn, monitoring, and feedback.
How many times have we said that? Anybody ever had a conversation with me and I cut off your defensive tone and go, where's your curiosity? Right? Me and Brandy, we had a long conversation, 2 hours. We debated for 1 hour, and it was the funnest debate I've ever had. We were just in exploration. We established our position of what we believed, and then we went into full exploration mode. And, well, why do you think that? Give me some more insights. And when we walk out the conversation, it wasn't whether she right, I right, I made a point, she made a point. It was, damn, that was refreshing. Give me some things to think about. Let me look at some different angles. That's what this game is about. If you think you have all the knowledge, then you think your cousin is God. Some of y'all think your cousin is God. Like God has downloaded everything just to you. And feedback. When you don't feel like you're good enough, you have a huge ego to compensate. Black folks, you're struggling with feedback because you don't think you're good enough. Hey, achieving the ability to receive feedback is going to be a painful struggle. You never went to the gym the first day and he was sore for a week? You're going to have to be mentally sore for a few months, a few years. But you need to work on that muscle where you, at some point, when I go to the gym and I have a good workout and I walk out, I'm like, that was a good workout. That's how you have to be about feedback. Yeah, it was pain. Yeah, you put your reps in. You almost sometimes even wanted to quit. But in the end, your brain, you're going, the value of this feedback is fucking crazy. Next slide. I got some stuff to cover today. So I'm moving. I'm rolling. Go ahead.
First, you have to be willing to learn.
By the way, I love this picture. That picture is beautiful. That's just, I love black people. Go ahead.
Learning comes when experience meets reflection.
Stop. There's 2 ways you're going to reflect. First of all, when you guys sit in this class, you learn this shit. If you go home and just change subjects and go back to your regular hustle and bustle, and you don't have a conversation about this stuff, you didn't learn nothing. That's not how the brain works. In order to commit it to the long-term memory, you're going to have to talk about it, right? If you can't talk about it, go home and write about it. Write your thoughts down. That helps you transfer to the long-term memory. Or go teach somebody. But you got to process. Reflection is not going, oh, that was cool. I like that. That was nice. That was a good class. Thank you, Pastor. But that's really, and that was a shot at somebody for those of you at home. I got somebody messing with me here. But it really comes from reflection. Go ahead, keep going.
You can learn from your own experiences, or you can learn from the experience of others through books, articles, and conversation. Learning everything on your own is costly and slow.
So all you people out here being entrepreneurs by yourself, you see where it says you can't be an entrepreneur by yourself? It's your circle, the people around you, how you design your infrastructure, right? How you design your ecosystem is how you learn. Learning is not just picking up a book, but you got a fucked up, dumbass ecosystem. If your ecosystem is trash, don't assume, look, I know it smells good to you, but it's trash. Your ecosystem requires for you to sit there. It's part of you have to stop and look at what is your ecosystem? Who's around you all the time? That's impacting your learning. What kind of environment you're in all the time? Who are the kind of people you're talking to all the time? What kind of TV shows are you watching all the time? When you go online, where are you going to online? Look at the stats. Where are you going all the time? Now that you think you're hella smart and you realize your environment's trash, sit down. Your intelligence is trash. All right. I kind of feel like old enough today. I don't mean to, but it's just. I'm not doing it. Okay. Did we finish the slide?
No.
Keep going.
You are one person. Learning from the experiences of others is much more productive.
Oh, so once again, learning from others is much more productive. That's why, what did Court say? Grab somebody's coat. Keep going.
You need to always approach your circle with curiosity, seeking out information that can help you expand and strengthen it.
Do you know how hard it is to mentor people who don't have curiosity? I had a friend who spent 1 hour on the phone trying to impress me to only tell me he was broke. That's just so normal. Like, people don't show up with curiosity. People don't ask questions for shit. When you meet powerful people, they love to ask questions. Meet a billionaire. You'd be like, why is this cat in the room trying to feel like he's nobody, asking everybody a hell of questions? He leads with curiosity. She leads with curiosity. They live with curiosity. I'm going to just go ahead and give social justice a shout out for a second. I don't know where to go with this. Okay, next slide.
Ambiguous knowledge.
Uh-oh.
What happened in this experiment is what presumably happens in real life.
Oh, wait, freeze. A freeze. Hold on a second. Oh, this is the thing I was talking about earlier. This is, remember I talked about how the brain works? This is called ambiguous knowledge. Because I saw ambiguous knowledge, I was like, wait a minute, I don't remember. This is a side note. This is not in the core book, but I added this little section. Start from the beginning again. Ambiguous knowledge. Go ahead. Start again.
Okay. Ambiguous knowledge. What happened in this experiment is what presumably happens in real life. Despite ambiguous stimuli, people form some sort of tentative hypothesis about what they see.
So when you see things, remember it says, believe nothing that you see? Remember that old scripture in the Bible? Is it nothing that you see or a little that you see, right? When you see something in life, this is why observation, knowledge, in business is the weakest form of knowledge there is. I know this entrepreneur who does this. Horrible knowledge. I know somebody who does marketing, so I'm gonna get into marketing because I see what they do every day. My mother was into marketing. No, it's trash. Oh, I can do the same business. I've seen what they do. I know what's going on in their household. I know what customers want. I can see, I know everything about these kind of people. Keep going. The longer, it's that she let the E
The
was.
longer they are exposed to this blurred image.
So the longer you are exposed to this assumption-based image, go ahead.
The greater confidence they develop in this initial and perhaps erroneous impression.
Go ahead.
So the greater the impact this initial impression has on subsequent perceptions.
Mm-hmm.
For a time, as the picture becomes clearer, there is no obvious contradiction.
Mm-hmm.
The new data are assimilated into the previous image.
So as you learn new data from your assumption, you just assimilate the data you assimilate the new knowledge into the old knowledge. And you don't even know you're doing it. So right now you're sitting in class and you don't realize that things you learn in class is a contradiction to your core beliefs. You're just assimilating. So you're mixing stuff. This is why me and Court will sit back and watch a lot of students who will come to us and say, yeah, so in class you taught us this. And so I started doing these different things. And then once you start describing what you're doing, me and Court looking at you like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Because you assimilated this new knowledge into your old knowledge and you're trying to all make it work together and then you try to justify it in a dialogue. And your brain doesn't really know you did it. You don't know you did it. So remember the Johari window? Mm-hmm. And how it says a portion of yourself you don't see? A portion of who you don't see? This is happening in that space. This is why you need people around you. Because in your mind, you think, I see myself. I know who I am. I can't begin to tell you this false sense of bravado, confidence I get from people when they talk to me who are entrepreneurs. Oh, I've been an entrepreneur for 15 years. I know what this is. That's not how your brain works. In order for you to build tools for the brain, you have to know its weaknesses. Remember I say you have to know what you don't know, what is not possible. Then you know, okay, since this is a weakness, I should build a tool to protect myself from this. But if you don't know the weakness exists, your assumption and your blindness to the spectrum of that ignorance will have you in this false sense of knowledge of who you are and what you're capable of doing. And you only are humbled in the face of failure. So to the point you fail, when things are positive, I can't tell you shit.
Man, come on, bro.
I can't tell you shit. I can see the problem unfolding in front of me, and you'll tell me what other people said. I always heard, I believe, I feel. Then when you fall, Nana, I realize I have these biases and these implicit biases even, and I want to talk to you now. Well, what happened? I just lost $90,000. But no, it's not. That's not why I'm here. Because you know me, I'm really a humble, curious person. No, the fuck you not. I can't begin to tell you that this is an invisible process. Your feedback is not a nice compliment to your business. It's not a nice compliment to your friendship. It's a necessary must. And guess, let me add this to it. The people give you hard feedback, you ain't gonna like them a lot of times. Fuck what you heard. This ain't no like contest. I'm sorry, this is wolf talk. They ain't gonna pet you, rub your belly, and make your feet go like this, let you lick the face. Pause. The reality is that this is why a lot of times you're like, oh, I'm tired of all these feedback people. I'm gonna hang around my friends who just agree with me. That feels so good. And I have to ask you, where do you want to go? It feels good not to work out and sit on the beach and eat hella sweets. It don't feel good 2 weeks later when you have diabetes. And it don't feel good. Hey, if you eat the sweets the way I'm talking about eat sweets, in 2 weeks, I get shit to diabetes real fast, right?
You went swimming in the sweets.
Hey, I said that's all I'm doing on the beach for 2 weeks is eating sweets. I got Kaja cakes everywhere, right? And then it feels horrible when you find out you're going to lose a limb. And even feels worse when you have to leave the loved ones behind, especially your kids. At some point, you got to find discomfort up front to avoid the pain on the back end. There's a thing that says pain prevents you from damaging yourself. There was a young lady whose name was Gabby, by the way. And Gabby she didn't have pain receptors. And she bit her tongue often to a point that they had to take her to the hospital because she couldn't swallow. She would scratch her eyeballs and lost her eyesight. The reality is that she couldn't feel pain. She was always in and out of the hospital hurting herself because she lost her pain receptors. Some of y'all hate pain, not realizing pain is one of the best things to keep you from killing yourself. You said what?
Just trying to get context because you be saying a lot and I can't type as fast as you talk. You said at some point you have to seek out pain in order to
stop from hurting yourself. So in business, you might say, oh, that's some discomfort, Nana. Yeah, but the loss of all your money and losing your business is worse. Make a decision. You want to have some discomfort from feedback, or do you want to lose all your shit? Do you want to be the baddest person in your head? You ever watch, excuse me, hip hop videos? And the dude is he got some of this cough. I don't hate this shit. But some dude is showing his gold teeth and looking hella gangster. If you strike all the gangsters and put them in one room, he'll realize he ain't special. But in his head, he think he's the hardest boss. Only in your ego. Next slide. It's about to get fun. Oh, yeah, go finish this one. Go ahead, finish this one.
The initial interpretation is maintained until the contradiction becomes so obvious that it forces itself upon our consciousness.
So it's obvious is when you fall. It's obvious when you finally realize that shit, you done hit your head against the wall so long that the blood is coming down to a point you're like, this is too much blood. A lot of us get used to ideas, and this is why, and the way you avoid this is by the Bayesian theory. Bayesian theory will allow you to avoid this because you'll hold what you know and what you believe loosely and what you learn loosely, and help you bypass this process. Next slide. Okay. Okay. Look at those first words, y'all. Correlations. This is in the book, mental models, but it doesn't spend enough time in there. And this at its very core is why Black folks struggle the most. One of the major contributors to our inability to build. Correlations. Or not what, Shabisha?
Causations.
I'm slowing this down for a reason. Because if this don't fuck you up, I don't know what does. Let's get this started. Roll.
The indicator is simple. The stock market goes up when a National Football Conference team wins and goes down when an American Football Conference team wins.
Go ahead.
The Super Bowl winner has correctly predicted the stock market's direction nearly 80% of the time from 1967 to 2008.
So real quick, everybody got that? I don't want to move forward. Everybody got that? Anybody didn't get that? Just raise your hand, because this is one I need you to get this, because I'm about to fuck up a lot of stuff. So since 1967 to 2008, the stock market goes up when the National Football Conference team wins, and goes down when the American Football Conference team wins the Super Bowl. 80% of the time, this has happened. Every time. Next slide.
75% of correlation between butter production in Bangladesh and the level of the Standard & Poor's 500 stock index.
Go ahead.
Lean Weber mined a wide range of international data series and was pleased to find that a simple dairy product explains so much.
So it says 75% correlation. So 75% of the time, when between butter production in Bangladesh and the level of the Standard & Poor's 500 stock index from between 1981 and 1983, that the butter production in Bangladesh impact that particular stock index. So if Bangladesh produces more butter, well, you're gonna have a good year, 75% of the time, right? And was super pleased when he discovered this information. Next slide. The word is silly here. Stay with the word silly. Can we just look at the word silly for a minute? Because the silly means something here. Go ahead.
Lean Weber used a silly example to make a serious point. The failure to distinguish between correlation and causality. This problem arises when researchers observe a correlation between two variables and assume that one caused the other. Once you are attuned to this mistake, you will see it and hear it everywhere, especially in the media.
Look at this next one. Keep it going.
Vegetarians have higher IQs. Nightlights lead to nearsightedness. Kids who watch too much television tend to be obese.
You guys ever been to a barbershop before? And there's these people who are very charismatic. They may even went to Stanford. And they're making a point of why certain things are the way they are. 99.9% of that shit is correlations. When you watch television news, they tell you what happened and why it happened. 99% of the time, that's correlations. You know how fucking hard it is to see causations? Causations are complex as hell. You ever been to the Berkeley flea market to somewhere and people tell you, oh, you got a cold? This is what I use to get rid of my cold? Correlation. Anybody ever tell you, hey, I use this special practice to improve this? Correlations. Because we ask them, how do you know this? Well, because it worked for me. That's a correlation. Anybody tell you, most entrepreneurs, they do this to achieve success? Correlations. You're going to realize that most of the shit you listen to are correlations, not causations. Social justice, most of it's correlations. You know why black people are not correlations? You know what? You know why I can't work with black people? Correlations. What's wrong with these kids? Correlations. Everything coming out of people's mouths will be correlations. You will see correlations from universities to corporations to brothers in the hood. It ain't no black people ignorance, but our culture is built on correlations. Built on correlations. You said, no, why is correlation? What's wrong with that? Because when it comes time to fix shit and you don't understand causations, you just throwing money away. Correlations is another form of superstition. Talib Nassim says somebody who makes business decisions based on correlations is practicing, what did he say, charlatanism. Correlations, when we go, next time, I was at the gym today and somebody says, you know, the reason black folks left the church, and as he started to articulate his points, I'm watching him going, none of the shit you said, you have facts for. It's your feelings. It's a correlation. You have no data for that. You have no sample size. You'll realize that to walk around thinking you understand why certain things happen and why this impacts this and why this causes this and why this is this and why this religion and why this God and why this idea, why this perception. There were Christians in the 1700s who thought certain things were a miracle until scientists discovered, no, we just didn't know that yet. And at that point, they were quoting causations, and they were just nothing but correlations. Meaning that as we learn more, even some of the miracles that we call miracles, our interpretation is nothing but a correlation. You know, when this happens, my daughter usually does this. All right. Let's say you have an employee, and he or she usually does a great job. And then all of a sudden, for a week, they fuck up really, really bad. And you say, I'm going to go in this room and scream at them. And then every time I scream at them, they get better. That's a correlation. I come along and say, no, treat that person nice. Don't scream at them. Treat them nice. No. They only get better when I holler at them. You know why you can't see it? I'm going to show you a little trick here. You ever remember gravitation to the means? That person, when you have gravitation to the means, that person usually will be here. And every once in a while, they may do this. And every once in a while, they may do this. Every once in a while, Steph Curry will score 65. Every once in a while, Steph Curry will score 3 points. Right? But on average, 30-something points a game. Right? If you get caught in a moment when they're doing something bad, even though you scream at them, your screaming had no causation effect upon their behavior. Their behavior was going to gravitate back to the means regardless. Mm-hmm. You see what I just did with that? Mm-hmm. So even when you think your input and your insight and your action is part of the causation, you're responding to them and their adjustment is just a correlation. But in your brain, you think you control the moment. In business, they got this thing said, it's called be cool. Be cool. Stay with me, y'all. I don't have a slide for this, but write this down. Be cool. Be cool says this, because of gravitation to the means, if you see your business go crazy, you make a crazy profit, don't get excited. If you have a bad time, don't get excited. Because your business this is your means. I had a young man tell me about his business today, and I said, what's the best you ever did? He said, I sold 320 items in one day. I said, what's the worst you ever? I said, and then what's the next best? He said, the next one was 260. But when he would talk, he usually talked from the space of the 315 and 260. But what's your average? 175. That's what you are. 320 was a blip. Some of y'all would look at your best performances and go, oh, that's who I am. Correlation. Causation, when you look at your business, you realize, no, I'm close to the means. Your children fuck up. They go through child screaming, ah! God damn it, this kid. Means nothing. Because they're going to grab, you got to look at what is their average. That's what you have in the household. Not the highs, not the lows, the average. Causation and correlation, and once you get this idea down, you're going to discover invisible systems, invisible things sitting in the spectrum. Because your false sense of knowledge and control have you where you're ignoring things you don't understand. The reason my business is so good because I'm so good. Correlation. The reason I took off correlation. Because causations are sometimes complex intersection of different, it's not linear. It's multiple things coming together to create that one output. You can have a contributor, but to give it all value to one item is not possible. Watch when you turn on the news now, watch any show on YouTube, any news article, and all you're going to hear is nonstop correlations. And so now you live in a world where you think correlations are causations. So you ever been in a room full of people and they're talking about what's wrong with the black community? Which is full of correlations, by the way. Martin Luther King said this was happening. The reason we don't have this is because of this, because of this, because of this. And then somebody goes, well, dude, what's the fucking solution? And people are like, well, you gotta vote. Gotta sit together, you gotta read. Because you know why I don't have an answer? Because when you speak in correlations, when you reverse a correlation, the shit don't work. It don't work. In order for you to build something, you gotta see it. Imagine if you had an imaginary idea of how engines worked. And you thought, the reason this car starts every morning, because I kicked the hell out of that tire. And the vibration causes the engine to shake just enough so when I put my foot on the gas and turn the ignition, it starts. But if I don't kick the tire, it may not start. So one day I come outside, you be like, yo, kick my tire. I'm like, what the fuck for? But I'm trying to get my engine started. Okay, I'm looking at you strange. Next week you come to me and go, hey, nah, this is where the investor can hear you. And this is where you sound crazy. Nah. Hey, man, I'm thinking about opening my own body shop. My own auto shop. I said, oh, cool. What you gonna do? Well, I hired a whole bunch of dudes with big feet. And they're gonna kick the shit out of these goddamn tires. And then you say to me, I'm tired of all this mentor shit because they ain't giving us no money.
Fam.
Y'all see this correlation causation game? If you mix tunneling from survival mode with correlations and causation game, do you see how bad you are? You think binary, you overcommit, and you have horrible knowledge of how shit works. You might as well make a business called Dizzy Imagination because you're so disconnected from reality as a motherfucker. I can't grow my business because white men don't let me. The one asleep right now, if you just wake him up, he'll tell you he ain't got to do with your fucking success or failure. But in your brain, you're taking correlations and causing. I'm not removing the impact of racism. But most people can't even talk about systemic racism because it's kind of a complex causation. But it's easy to name these simple things which are correlations. Yes, when this happens. But the causation can be a third variable. Let's get into it a little bit deeper. Let's roll. And I'm gonna open up for questions on this one because if you don't get the value of what this is, you'll stop quoting to people what works and how things are that you don't really get. And this is going to help you become that experienced person. The more you realize what you don't know, it's easier to gain knowledge. But if you're in a situation where you have all these assumptions because you're running around thinking your correlations are causations, your failure is because your perception is heavily distorted by correlations. Keep rolling.
That boy is good.
That was a good one.
Next slide.
Numerous scholars from varied disciplines have studied causation, and most agree that 3 conditions must hold to make a claim that X causes Y.
Go.
The first is that X must occur before Y.
So if you say, because sometimes people say, this is just because of that. It's like, well, no, that's always been around. You can't just blame it on that one thing, right? Keep going.
The second is a functional relationship between X and Y.
Oh, I love this one. Okay, go ahead.
Including the requirement that cause and effect take on two or more values.
Keep going.
For example, the statement, smoking causes lung cancer, says that smoking increases.
Go ahead. Next slide. Did she just cut me off? Oh, must because of all the relationship between the. I think she okay. She cut it off. I'll try back, Philip. Keep going. Just keep going on this next one.
So, a scientist must consider all the relationships between the variables. Does the person smoke? Yes or no? And does the person have cancer? Yes or no? Here, too, you must consider whether the relationship is merely happenstance.
So, meaning that you can smoke, you can have cancer, but you don't work out. Cancer could be easily attached to smoking. It may not have anything to do with smoking. It could be you eat something else, and the smoking, what caused you to smoke is the actual causation of the cancer, not the smoking itself. Right? There's so many different variables that can be a part of the cancer, but you can get hook, line, and sink. What was it? Hook, line, and
sinker.
Sinker. You can get attached to the emotional highlighted word, which is cancer, cigarettes. Ooh, bad. Right? This is the whole social justice movement. Ooh, bad. This person, this. Ooh, bad. Right? So you don't have context. Remember you said you have to have context to understand stuff? This is a context science. So if you don't understand context, you can't see causation and correlations. Because if you don't understand context and all the different variables that can be impacting it, your brain can just be copy and pasting all the ignorance around you, especially the loved ones or the people who are very charismatic. You'll copy and paste all these charismatic ideas, or even the institutions who taught you from ignorant ass people who happen to sit in this branded in room that's just as dumb as you, who are teaching this idea to you. You copy and paste these ideas because you don't know how to look at all the possible variables of causation. So in the end, you take a very well-articulated correlation. Man, if universities don't do that shit all the time. I don't know if you guys get a chance to read a lot of these books from professors. Some of this shit be like full of correlations, and it's articulated so well to only to find out when somebody else comes along and be like, that was horrible because they missed these 4 variables. Keep going.
The final condition. Wait.
Did we finish that one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, next slide.
The final condition is that for X to cause Y, there cannot be a factor Z that causes both X and Y.
Watch this.
For instance, watching too much television may correlate with obesity, but low socioeconomic status may explain both the television viewing and the weight problem.
Did y'all see how cold that is? So you around here talking about, man, these kids are getting fat because they watch too much TV. So then what you do is you decide to run a campaign on let's remove TV from houses. But you don't realize because these people are suffering from poverty, when you remove the TV from the house, you cause deeper damage because you didn't see the poverty. You fell in love with the correlation and you didn't take time to figure out the causation. When the real causation is those kids are in poverty. They're in survivor mindset. So in the end, everything you keep doing, you spend. Can I tell you how much nonprofits and government spend on correlations? And all it takes is somebody in the office to say, we learned from this articulate brother or sister or this organization, this is causing poverty or a problem with this group of people. And we're going to spend $2 million, $3 million, $4 million, $10 million to solve this problem. This group CDC says black folks ain't never seen CDC on the block. I haven't seen CDC in one rap video yet. Right? I would love to see CDC as a backup dancer just once. And the reality is that CDC would say, hey, black people suffer from this. From a person who's in a university who's never even been on the block as well, which is nothing but a correlation. By the time it gets to my organization, it's $1 million contract to run a campaign on a correlation. Nonprofits are formed today who are making millions on a correlation. Some of you are occupying your time and your money and your resources, giving money to correlations, giving your time to correlations, giving your emotions to correlations, and giving your life to correlations. When the hidden causations, so why is that important? Let's say you have to do a market assessment. And I want to sell t-shirts to this market. But you're looking at the market from the lens of a correlation. You don't understand their purchasing. So when the market shifts, you won't even see it coming. You won't even feel it. You won't even sense it because you have correlations giving you a false assessment of the market you're seeking to serve. But if you get clear causations, you can find that opportunity and that market positioning in a way the competition goes, how the fuck? You beat us there every fucking time. You guys see how cold this is? Mm-hmm. For a culture that is built on the foundation of correlations. I used to go to Berkeley Flea Market. Man, them motherfuckers used to have suggestions for everything. Every broke person out there could tell you how to save the world. They just couldn't do it today for themselves. They tell you, well, you buy this, eat this, drink this. You got to be on a bone marrow, lemonade, some type of diet. You got to rub your ears with a certain kind of oil. You got to smell like a fucking strawberry stick. And in the end, this is going to raise your spiritual level to the point that you can free yourself and help save your people. But if you just buy the strawberry sticks for $25, this can be part of the process. And people walked around wearing clothes and items and singing and chanting and believing, and it's nothing but correlations. And you can say, well, remember the old correlation of marijuana? Jamaicans smoke weed. What does that mean? What the fuck does that mean? The Indians used to smoke weed. They used to smoke drugs. What the fuck does that mean? What the fuck does that mean? We make these assumptions, then we fill in with all these assumptions because that's what the brain does. And then if you're educated, you'll learn to put words around those assumptions and make that shit sound good like Cornel West. Mm-hmm. Or Umar Johnson. What the fuck does that mean? Umar speaks from a space of correlations. When you get home, go download Umar Johnson, listen to it talk. And he'll say, the reason this is, and if you do this, this will happen. That type of thinking only works in a world where things don't change. In a world where things change, it could have happened last week and never happened again because it could have just been. It could be what do you call it? Not a division. It's that's the word for it. But it's a variance. But it's it'll come back to me. Not dividend. It'll come back to me in a minute. It'll come back to me. Next slide. Oh, that's it? Any questions? Let's open the questions. She can't say, look here, y'all slipping. She got the microphone. I don't know why you even raise your hand. You should be like, just start talking. Go ahead. Court, jump in anytime you want to.
All right, hold on. Let me find them. Okay.
Any questions online?
I'm going to pass the mic around until I find my questions.
Okay, that's cool. Any questions online?
No, but I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm taking us way back.
Go ahead.
To Mount Everest.
To what?
Mount Everest. And the question that came up for me as you were talking through this is, I'm dying on Mount Everest because I don't know much about Mount Everest, but I still want to go. And so I'm out there. I don't have a plan. I'm just winging it, right? We're just going to make it work, right? Your favorite thing. Like, we'll make it work. Terrible strategy, I die. What are other options? That's so the way that because the first place that I go to is you have to learn your way forward, but that's not the only option. But that's the first place that I go to. And I'm like, well, if I were going to go up a mountain, I can't really learn my way forward. How else would I figure out how to learn how to do that? Maybe I would have to do that a couple of times. So my mind just went to a whole lot of questions of how would I scale a mountain if I, especially one as big as Mount Everest. What would you do?
Oh, what would I do?
Yes.
Corey, want to take that one first?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
First thing I do is I hold the coat of somebody who did.
Yeah.
Hold their coat. yo, oh, you scaled it? Okay, I'm gonna shadow you. I'm gonna watch you. I'm gonna learn from you. I'm gonna sit down and get game from you. I'm gonna soak up as much knowledge as I can from you, as much as I can. Then there's people called Sherpas. Sherpas are people who do tours to Mount Everest for a living. So my first time up, I'm not going to assume I can just do that shit because I know there's 200 dead bodies up there. So I'm going to take me a Sherpa, spend the money, and do it with them a couple of times until I'm comfortable enough. And that may take however long. But there's strategies to it. Like there's a strategy first, and the gray areas, the learning comes within the gaps of the strategy. It doesn't just come within the like, oh, we gonna just do this shit. Hey, let's go to Mount Everest.
You know, it's funny. My brain went to looking for the most complex way to think about that. Like it immediately was like, oh, that has to be so complicated. How could you do that?
Well, I think that's a good point though too, because everything's complicated when you don't know about it.
Yeah.
Like, entrepreneurship, if I just sat down with somebody and just for 2 hours and just shared things I know about entrepreneurship, it should be extremely overwhelming. It should be intimidating as fuck, right? But what I discovered by holding quotes of people in front of me is they became less magical as time went on. Because you start to see that the journey is rewarding as long as you stay with the disciplines. It's when you divorce the disciplines, you're fucked, right? And so this really is a learning, slow journey. The problem with entrepreneurship is everybody's trying to get rich overnight. It just don't work. And everybody wants to be famous overnight. Everybody wants to have status overnight. Everybody wants to be, look, I told you I was smart, validation overnight. That's not the game you in. When we keep saying serve, if really people went towards serving, then serving doesn't really have a time limit like that. But your ego does. So what you would do as soon as you hit that first part of mind, you're like, ooh, this is hard. You walk your ass back down the mountain and you say, who knows what the fuck they doing? Then you also look for causations and correlations in the lessons they teach you. Because even when they teach you something, they're not gods, right? But you don't challenge them. You go home and do the research, and you can even bring it back as a question, or you could test for yourself, right? You never offend the mentor. You never offend the mentor. If a mentor tells you 75% she tells you is good, 25% they told you is trash. But that 25% has to be tolerated because the value of that 75% is worth it. So in the end, you listen, you go home, research, because at the end of the day, everybody, the decision you own, the mentor doesn't. At the end of the day, that's your business, not the outsider. At the end of the day, you take that win and that loss, right? And so that's when you're learning from somebody. You never forget radical responsibility. As you learn from somebody, you are still in radical responsibility of your shit. Go ahead, Brandon.
To that point, how long, and I know you spoke about time, that it is not overnight, but how long is it before, if you encounter a lot of gatekeeping while you're searching for information and you're trying to actively look for this information, how long is it before you can get to the point where it's like, okay, well, let me start the climb. Let me start this by myself and figure it out. And then the wave of information comes, because there's sometimes that barrier that happens as we're learning, where don't nobody give a fuck about you. And there's no support there. There's not even a mentor in the horizon for you even to start. So at what point do you get to that where you're just like, okay, well, fuck it, I have to figure it out?
Okay. Two things. The time question, it depends. It depends on you. Because you can have mentors around, you just can't see them. I can't tell you how many times I deal with black folks. Every day, Cord does too. You see them right there. They like, man, I want to get into business. I wish somebody can teach me. I'm sitting right there going, fuck it. You don't see me. I don't need to see you. You've been around me for 3 weeks. You ain't picked up on it yet, right? Or I want to learn about business. I'm gonna come to your class. I ain't been here since. And third thing is that you will almost know when you're ready to try yourself. You know, I watched my daughter, and she's a do for self. I don't know. She was just born do for self. I ain't got nothing to do with no parenting. That's just somehow she came out for the first time she could move a muscle. It was like, let me do it. Even when she couldn't walk or talk, she would crawl over to the gate that we used to keep the child from going, and she watched us open it, and she'd spend the whole day trying to figure out what we did. Right? Like it was like, I need to figure out what y'all did so I can do the same thing. And her thing now is I can't wait to be an adult so I can do more stuff, right? You will know when it's time to test and try. It's like, I don't know if you ever worked out before and you're trying to push to your limit. And there's a point when you'll try to push your limit and that weight is just stuck on your chest. You have just turned yourself into a statue. But there's a point where you say, you know what, my workout's feeling kind of strong, I'm ready to try again. And you move it a little bit more. And you go back to your training process, and eventually you can move it. And when you move it, you're not that good, but you're moving it. And then you become a lifer because you stay in the game, and now you can work out with that same weight, right? It's a gradual process. I think time is the distortion. That's why I think time gets me stuck, because everybody has different background assumptions about the way the world works. And when new information is presented, that process, the ambiguous process we talked about, ambiguous memory, that process in itself changes the outcome and speed that we learn. You get where I'm going with this? So somebody else who don't know anything may pass you right up. It's like if you watch martial art class, some people just kind of go through the belts accordingly, and some people be like, man, it took him 10 years to get his black belt. Because he's still in there trying to use boxing move. Or he's trying to use a dance move because he came from fame or some shit. I don't know. I just felt funny to me. Why does he kick so high? I'm sorry. We'll just be silly. But the point is that. So what I'm suggesting is that it depends. I think time becomes a stressor as opposed to fall in love with the process. And it happens. Have you ever did something and you enjoying yourself and you realize how much you did because you were enjoying yourself, and something you hate doing, it's like the clock doesn't even move no more? Or if you look at the time, if you want to get off work, when you had a job, I want to get off work, and you kept looking at the clock and you feel like 5 minutes took an hour, as opposed to you're at the work, you're at the job, and you're having the best time of your life. You're like, shit, it's already over? That's the difference. That's why I'm concerned about the word time.
Can I jump in there too?
Go ahead.
Also, depending on the thing, books can be mentors, depending on the thing. So if you feel isolated or there's no physical mentors around, depending on the level you're at in life, man, there's plenty of people, plenty of women and men who have climbed Mount Everest before, and they wrote a book about it. And they wrote a book, a step-by-step of what happened, that can give you some context, not the whole thing, but it gives you context, and it gives you a language to where now you have more knowledge, to where you read another one and you're a little more detailed, and all of a sudden you start creating a map in your head about how to climb it. Doesn't mean it's the terrain, but now next time you happen to talk to somebody who is experienced about Mount Everest, now you can have a real conversation at least, because you know the language now, and they can be like, oh shit, when you can get in the club, join our club. So at minimum, the books. When I first started the entrepreneurship shit, there wasn't nobody around that I knew, but I just made books my mentors at the beginning.
That's a damn good point, bro. No, actually, that's a nice variance. Here, I want to double down what he just said, because I want you guys to really hear it. When you don't know something, your brain turns the knowledge into noise. You could be amongst a group of entrepreneurs, but if you don't know the language and you don't know how to hear the sound, you don't hear it. You can't hear context. You can't hear anything. You don't even know to ask a question. Everything just seems like, oh my God, great mentor, thanks for sharing, right? But the best way to be mentored is to practice on your own. Practice on your own, so then when you're being mentored, you know how to ask questions to adjust the context from the lesson. If you're not taking responsibility in your mentorship, then because even there might be people around you that can actually give you game. They could be an old entrepreneur that's out the game, he's retired, whatever, but he just cuts his grass every day, right? But when you start speaking that language, hear that language. I'm sure you guys have already done this since you've been in Hope. There's things you've heard that I never heard that before, or now you start to see certain books, you start to see certain people talk about it. You may have gotten into a deep conversation with somebody, and they're like, "Damn, okay, what's up with you? Where are you getting this knowledge from?" Because they're like, "How do you know this?" Right? There is a wolf's language, and if you're reading books about how wolves speak, talk, do, think, process, learning principles that wolves follow, right? Then all of a sudden, as you learn that language, it'll help you seek out the different people that is valuable to you, right? But I'm also concerned about self-help. Self-help is the most misleading of the fake wolf languages that is out there. There is no 6 steps, 5 steps, 3 steps methodology because goalposts are always moving. I can't teach you how to kick a perfect field goal. The goalposts are always moving. So when you hear people who speak with such confidence, or, I wrote a book because I studied 200 different entrepreneurs. Trash. Why is it trash? You cannot measure the value of a process through an outcome. Why can't you measure the value of a process through outcome? If 10,000 people engage in a badass idea, at least 10 or 20 of them will be successful, even though it's a bad idea. And when somebody runs into those 10 or 20 people with a microphone and say, "Hey, why are you successful?" Hindsight bias kicks in, and they start to tell you, "Oh, because I ate lemons, and I practiced meditation with herbs, and I walked up mountains, and I used baby oil." And then you will write down, in order to be successful, you must use baby oil, meditate with herbs, have lemons in your backyard, and walk up hills. And this is the secret to success. And then this is how they talk to you in self-help. I know this one entrepreneur, and he said, and he did, but you didn't see all the ones who died on the mountain who did the exact same thing. There's 9,980 people who died on the mountain, and 20 people survived. And you're about to follow that same process in the name of self-help books. Trash. Next.
Okay, this is a question outside of the questions on here based on what you just said. So considering that majority of the people that dream about running a business are never going to run a business, and like I'll say long-term rate of an entrepreneur is such a small percentage of the population, we're already engaging.
Wait, freeze. Is it?
There's way more followers than leaders.
Yeah, but is it relevant to your point?
Well, the reason why I'm doing this framing, and I could totally be doing it wrong, so bust me up if I am. I said that as a preface to say that, like, we're already engaging in let's just call it a sport, that there's a high fail ratio, right? So when you said that you can't measure the value of a process through the outcome, yeah, business plans and all the nines or whatnot, there's certain, or I'm assuming in different business arenas, that there are processes that producing a good, long-lasting, long-thinking entrepreneur needs to follow, like being a consistent learner, being humble, practicing, exposure, right? So like there are like these basic fundamentals. And even if you attempt to follow them, there's still a high failure rate. So then how do you rise above the noise when there's people saying, well, I tried that and I did all the things, but I still failed, when there's already a high failure rate?
Well, first of all, in business, okay, in everything is a high failure rate. I don't know what anything is success. All forms of success, playing basketball, high failure rate. More people fail than make it to the NBA, by far. Ratio's not even close. Two is that there's this rule that says if you make it in business and you just become successful, it's skill mixed with a little bit of luck. If you become super successful, it's mostly luck with a little bit of skills, right? Luck is always a variable. So you can do everything right and still fail. But even in your failure, the game is not it's not a destination win or loss. It's a long-term journey. You're gonna have loss, you're gonna lose on this journey, and you're gonna have wins on this journey, right? But if you're scared of a loss, let me help you out with that. In your loss process, you still should have a win. The relationships, the knowledge, the insights, right? The circle of competence. But if you look at the win and loss based upon I was successful or not successful, the problem is not business, it's not the journey, it's your ego. Right? It's not, Court ain't gonna have always good days. Court may end the story. Remember the probability of progression, which says in 1 year, if you had 97% chance of success, or 15% growth, that any given point on that day, you have like 40% of that day or 49% of that day is all bad, right? You got to realize the bad goes with the good, and you're still making progression. So where so many people are too transactional with this entrepreneur stuff, is it going to give me back what I put in? Yeah, it is, but not the way you want it, right? If you put 20 years into entrepreneurship and you lose pinpoint, you're hella valuable. I don't give a shit if you lost it. You're hella valuable, right? The level of knowledge that you acquired is insane. So I think some of us are trying to use business to change our personal story to project our value to the world, as opposed to we're signing up for this game that has rewards but has loss attached to it. And if the loss happen, it's part of, you don't get into NBA expect to win every game, right? But you realize in order to be a champion, even if you, Michael Jordan, how many games did he actually lose? No one remembers that, because we get caught up in the narrative, right? But if you play with Michael Jordan and you have a lost game, I don't expect you to go in that back of the room and be like, what the fuck? Or even you lose one of the championships. You lose the championship, I'm still in the NBA. So that's this summer, we're going to practice, we're coming back next year. You signed up to be in this game. And the long term of your career is you was a winner. But you being a winner might be 60-40, but you forget about that 40. So I think when you measure the value of something based upon the outcome, then your relationship to the outcome is tainted by ego, person, all kind of different variables. You have to learn the principles. Like when self-help doesn't teach principles. Tony Robbins may own hella principles, but he just tells you outcome language. And he tells you, if you pay me another $25,000, I can give you one of these principles. In his class, if you've been paying attention, I've been like context versus correlations is a deep ass principle. Survivor mindset, deep ass principle. The memory thing. It's so funny. I'm having one of those moments where my memory is distorted. But the way your brain works, these are principles that once you learn these principles, how I got there may apply to my perspective and the role and my position in the market. In business, there's this famous saying that if you in business and you try to copy my game, you're gonna lose because you don't know what game you playing. We might be playing different games. I might be playing the volume game, you might be playing the quality game. We both can win at that game, but it's like you can't be Russell Westbrook and trying to play like Shaq. You're undervaluing your game. You got to know your game that you're playing. And so, but if you understand the principles of the game, as opposed to saying, for example, everybody can argue that Iverson was one of the greatest basketball players that ever came along. He never won a championship. Right? but his principles of the way he showed up to the game was valuable in his window of value, right? So I'm trying to explain to you, like, if you measure by his championships, you can't talk about Iverson. But go to the street, go to anybody who loves basketball and say, what do you rank Iverson?
Number one.
But when you say just by championships, because, okay, go back to this other concept. Your environment dictates the value of your outcome. Your environment dictates the value of your outcome. If you put a great player on a bad team or in a bad environment, the outcome doesn't look as great as that player actually performs. So if you look at the outcome of their performance in a bad environment, you don't see the value. This is where when people are going out seeking recruiters and going out trying to find scouts are looking for the future players or who to recruit their team. They're looking for that player's capabilities outside their outcomes. Put you with a bad coach, Looney Tucci. What's Looney's name? Looney. Kevin Looney, right? He was actually a scorer in college. They asked him to play a rebounding defensive role. When he shoots the ball, you're like, what are you doing shooting? Because you're looking at the outcome of you don't know the process of what he's went through and where he stands. If you don't know all that stuff, then things don't make sense to you. So when you try to copy something and you don't know the backstory, somebody used to tell me that Damian Lillard in college, when he first came to college, he was not the baddest dude. A lot of dudes didn't know he was going to make it to the NBA at that level. But what people didn't see was his work ethics. Mm-hmm. His work ethics was smashing on everybody. And he ended up going number 7 in the draft, right? And the reason for that is because the invisible thing had value. But if you watched him just on a basketball court and he played, and you try to copy and paste that, there's no value in the stuff you're watching without understanding what made him who he is. You don't go with this, why it's important? Mm-hmm. Let me close the class with this. Do we have any more serious questions online? Anything like that? Nope. Good? Okay, one more question. Go ahead.
When you were talking about correlation, you had said something that made me think. So how do you impact people's means behaviors if you're thinking that they're responding based on correlations?
I think you mix it up. So means is if I'm a B+ person and today I'm performing like a D, that's not your control. You just be cool and wait. You ever heard of this in business? They say, don't do anything. Yeah. When some certain crisis happen in your business, don't do anything. Yeah. Let it self-correct itself.
Well, can I give an example to get better? Okay, so let's say, I'm going to use my business. Let's say I have an employee that, which I'm making this up. This is not true, y'all. But let's just say I have an employee that is cool all the time. And then they start fucking up and I just start noticing it. I'm like, all right, cool. Let me sit back and watch their behaviors and their patterns. And then they go back to being cool. Then they go into these waves of fucking up. Then their fuck up becomes their normal pattern and behavior.
Oh, that's new means.
So now that's the new means. If I go in and I'm like, what the fuck you doing? You fucking up business, or you impacting bottom line, or you're not doing XYZ, and we got all these quarterly reviews and stuff. This is what I'm measuring you against. Then how, if my correlation, and then they improve their behavior, right? They go back. If my correlation is, oh, see, I sat down and I talked to them and that's why they changed, but it wasn't really why they changed, or it could have had a negative impact because now they're just better at hiding the things or whatnot, right? So how do I influence that new means behavior?
So here's a really simple. Start off with a question. You don't know. If I first of all, you have to know somebody's history. If they have a history of doing this, right? And let's just say they go into a slump, right? Hey, you okay? Things cool? Yeah, I'm still in a slump. That might just be a means. Sit back and watch it for a minute, right? Give them some encouragement. Hey, it's okay. Let's get back and focus. It didn't work out last time, but I believe in you. Let's make it happen, right? Causation, you would tell the difference. If they became an alcoholic all of a sudden and they're kind of drunk, you'll get some extreme inconsistencies to the point that it's almost like the causation just shifted. Now you're just constantly kind of averaging in this space, right? When you start to see those samples, there's a couple of things. You still have to start with a question. And then in some cases, let me add another layer to it because it's not simple. There's no, like I said, this is not simple. In some cases, it could be environmental designs. You can have an environment that, let's say, you have a person and they're not reading all the reports, but you realize the computer they're on has a screen that's just flickering, but you didn't see this all the time. And you just keep going, I sent you this report, I don't know you're not reading the report. Or they got a little small, little cute laptop, but the laptop, their eyes are deteriorating. The eyesight is deteriorating, and they try to use this laptop, and reading causes them to go to sleep, right? You have to investigate. You can't assume. If you use Bayesian theory, you say, I don't know why they're doing this. I'm going to have to try to figure out why they're doing this. And you're going to have to make some educated guesses and test. No assumptions. There's no magic trick. People are hard as fuck. I want to close out on this last point. This is my closing point. I'm going to talk about Brooklyn and how they say goodbye. Maybe I will. And my closing point is this. I want to talk about this thing. My wife brought this conversation to my attention. And she's like, yo, I hate this role stuff. How these young people, don't really like roles. Men role, women roles, family roles. I said, let's get into that a little bit. And I want to share that conversation with you just a little bit. Roles are hella important for human beings. Me and Mashama, we have roles in Fight Team Media. I've tried to cross over those roles a couple of times. I own dominance of the company, and shit went south. If Mashama has a certain client, or he talked to a certain employee, this is what we need to do, and I come along and say, oh man, don't worry about it. This is what we're going to do. Huge damage. Mashama has strengths that are my weaknesses, and I have strengths that are his weaknesses. And we play our roles. And because we understand our roles, we practice our roles. And then I thought about this. Roles create consistency. Let's say you think you're a great parent. How do you display that to a child? Not how do you project it, but how do you display it to a child? How does a child read how good you are? Now, anybody knows children love rules and structure. They love it. All kids love rules and structure.
She went.
Okay. I wish I was here today. Put your hand there. so all children love, like when children are born, children almost connect to rules and structure like a plug to a socket. But let's say you say, I'm a good parent. If you don't have roles, you're probably not a good parent. You know why? Because your brain, your brain doesn't have the capabilities of being consistent. If you don't have it as a routine in your life, this is what I got to do every day, and you monitor that routine, I was there for you every day. You thought you were. It's about 20, 30%. But in your mind, you'll be like, I did this. Okay, let's look at your routines that you had with your daughter, your son. What routines? I don't see no routines here. It's impulsive. All of us are, as you become adults, we're impulsive animals. And without routines and roles, a lot of our behavior is invisible to our children. Routines and roles. Look, you remember chivalry? You remember mannerism? Mm-hmm. Those are routines and roles that teach you certain values that work in society. You remove those routines and roles, how do you teach a human being without consistency? All human beings need consistency to learn. Some of you guys are running your house with inconsistency and then wonder why the children are picking up other lessons. Children needs routine, structure, and roles. Now, let's come off your children. You're running a business. Let's say you have this step in business where you have to create a process to get something done. And the process is 1, 2, and 3 to get something done. 1, 2, and 3. But in that process of 1, 2, and 3, there's 6 people that have to work like passing a baton to get the work done at a level of efficiency for it to be successful, for you to make your money. Now, this is now for you who are self-employed. Y'all might be like, huh? Okay, when you hire people to get shit done, you break shit out in modulars. And as you break it in modules, you have different people handle different portions of modules that maintain a certain level of productivity. But here's a problem. It's this thing called human variance. Each person walks into the office every day with a different emotional space. Different weight sizes, different height sizes, different looks, different clothes, different feelings. You start to get that. So in a business, 20% variance, that's pretty healthy. Meaning that today, compared to yesterday, compared to the other day, we got this little 20% of variance that's happening. One day you're performing high, one day performing low. But some of y'all have 60% variance from your employees. They're all over the fucking place. Some of them come to work and they feel about social justice because you're so political at the office, right? That, you know, goddamn racism, homophobia, sexism. I just can't work today. You know, my husband, my wife had me tripping, so I can't really focus like that today. Y'all got me fucked up. You say, well, no, how do we get past that? The first thing I'm gonna look at is what is your routines and roles in the company? When you try to do this organic shit in an infrastructure and you don't understand the values of rules and routines, I mean, structure, rules, routines, roles and routines. You don't understand the value of roles and routines. Your variations will be so huge, it is unpredictable. Same thing with your household. If you ever seen households, human beings learn through repetition. You might say, you know what, for example, you may learn a value in this class and think when you leave this class, you carry that value every time you run across that same kind of problem. And what you don't see, pay attention on the screen. Can I off on the screen? Yeah. I you put your, like, I'm so surprised in a food space. But you put this, quick ones, let's stay focused. But let's say in your household, okay, so you don't have these roles and routines. But in your brain, you think, I'm kind of lost my thought by looking at the screen. In your brain, you think for some reason, you're communicating the same idea over and over and over again. Oh yeah, you learn a new theory, and you think every time you run across that problem, you use that same part of your brain, your rational brain, to solve the problem, right? What the human doesn't realize is when the human brain faces fear, stress, risk, or anything like this, your emotional brain dominates. It sounds just as intelligent as your rational brain. So you don't realize you're inconsistent with your family, your loved ones, your employees, because you're jumping between your emotional brain and your rational brain. Your emotional brain, and to you can't see the switch flipping back and forth. And if you don't have roles and routines that you kind of help you get back to what you're supposed to do in these scenarios, going manual, and you just said the same thing, then you may be producing a high level of inconsistency that's invisible to you. Because the rational brain, when you're sitting talking to me in a rational space, you don't realize, but this is all done in your emotional space. And when you're in your emotional space, you can't really talk about your rational space. And so think about this, like you're at the house, wife's cooking dinner. Okay, I'm distracted with a whole bunch of stuff. I probably need to wash dishes. That's my routine. I don't want to sometimes, don't like it, don't feel like it, but I gotta wash dishes, right? Then the next morning, she may clean the bathroom. The next day, I may mop the floor, right? Now, if we don't make that a routine, we will swear we all did it to only discover by the end of the week our house is trashed. And in our brain, we feel like if we can clean it a whole week, we only clean 2 days. Right? In order for the house to be peaceful and function well, we all need to participate in these routines and roles. Once we break those roles and routines, inconsistency becomes toxic to our systems. You guys gonna go with this shit? How deep this shit is? And you cannot use your memory and your perception to measure the consistency of your actions. Have you ever went to the gym before and convinced yourself you work out really? How many people have you met? People say, I work out really, really hard. And when you analyze, they went to the gym for 3 days and they really went to the gym and they worked out for 30 minutes. But they actually spent 9 hours at the gym and they are convinced they went to the gym 6 days and they only did an hour and a half total for the fucking week. And it's not your lying. You're not even lying. It feels like that. Because remember, if you think it, you believe it, you feel it, you become it. Right?
I think you're right. Yeah.
And so without rules and routine, without roles and routines and things that you kind of create, these are the roles I play in my world. These are routines I engage. Why do you think in the military they say you're a captain, you're a private, you're a sergeant? Why do they make you a director and a CEO and a middle manager, customer service? They're saying, I'm assigning a role to you. And I would measure by the way you show up to that role every day. Without that role, could you imagine how everybody would just run when there's a problem over here and everybody running when there's a problem there, but too many people are solving addressing a problem that's not qualified to be there? Some of us, me and Brandy was having a conversation, we discovered people hate the word restrictions. What can you build without restrictions? Besides a headache. Sometimes we got so much into this idea of freedom, we throw out too much baby with the bathwater. Life is full of structure, rules, and routines so we can enjoy true freedom. Without structure, without rules, without routines, we can't gain freedom. Some of us can't find a loved one because we never embraced the role that we want to play in a relationship. We don't even know what to look for. We got somebody in the other side of the room who we're not satisfied with because you're like, I don't know if you understand your fucking role. Oh, girl, I just lost my job and I need me some new chores. You'll hook me up? Oh, yeah, daddy. You understand me? But that's what they call me. I don't know what they call you. You understand me? Don't be mad to play it. Be mad to game. No, but seriously, go back to me being just being me, just being silly. But some of you guys have horrible relationships. Hopefully you're teaching your child early to figure out what role they want to play and develop skills in that space. You say, nah, I don't know how that feels. I'm a they. Have you dated somebody and you build a relationship and you decide that day they don't learn how to cook? That day they don't learn how to clean? Can anybody tell me how horrifying that is? That day they're going to learn how to wash clothes. That day they're going to learn how to iron. That day they're going to learn how to make up a bed. You already trying to figure out how the fuck to get out of this relationship. Right? Where do they develop those skills? Do they develop it when they in the situation? Or do they develop a relationship to it before they get in the situation?
Before.
This whole divorce of I don't care about roles is weird to me because we're disqualifying ourselves to collaborate. Collaboration needs roles and routines. It just does. Sorry, people. Sorry, the they team. I don't know what their roles are and how the routines work out. But we all got here on earth because there were some roles played. Ain't nobody on this earth got here because, you know what? I was just one day I was playing basketball and oh shit, one fell out. Right? Somebody was in a routine, a role, some structure, something, somewhere. And if you don't create one, society will create one for you. I told my son a long time ago, I said, this house feels oppressive to you, huh? He said, yeah. I said, okay. You know what that is? He said, why? Because you don't have no fucking rules for yourself. If you want to feel freedom, create rules for yourself, and then guess what I'm gonna do? I back the fuck up. Simple. I know we're in the social justice age, and everybody's like, oh, I want to, whatever, roles don't matter, and routines, and You ain't built shit. Go build some shit. And you're gonna realize you better know roles and routines. With that being said, as they say in Bangladesh, sell that butter, baby. Good night.